Nelda, would you do a roll call, please?
Commissioner Shoemaker,
Present.
Commissioner Davis,
Present.
Commissioner Dr. Simon,
Present.
Vice Mayor Moore,
Present.
Mayor Hillman,
Present.
Town Manager Lavity,
Present.
and Town Attorney Tercivia. Thank you.
So if I could, the microphones are working. We just have no audible sound in the room. We lost that piece of the system. But those listening at home will pick up sound. We just to each other. So it might times might sound like we're yelling because we can't hear ourselves because the speakers aren't working.
What'd you say?
Exactly.
Okay,
Thank you for that raise. Good job.
okay. So, all right, so we'll continue to talk into the mics then. All right, can we stand please for the pledge?
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's move on to the approval of the agenda. I do have an item to add, and that is the upcoming educational campaign for the charter questions that'll be coming up for the March election. And Teresa will make that presentation. So I guess we put that under new business. That would be F in new business. Anybody else have anything to add or change on the agenda?
I do.
Go right ahead.
I'd like to add a procedure of meetings for
Say again,
discussion.
please.
Procedure of our meetings for discussion.
Okay, make that G under new business. Anything else, anyone? Okay, entertain a motion to accept the agenda with those two additions.
I move we accept the agenda as edited.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we have no presentations or proclamations. Do we have any public comments? Anything from the people that are here? We have one guest. Ron, nothing? Okay. Okay, public comments are then closed. Board announcements, we have one vacancy for a 3-year term on the Code Enforcement Board.
Could I?
I wanted to find out how would you all like to proceed with that? Would you like for the staff to bring the applicant forward for interview, or would you like for us to wait until we receive more applications?
My opinion would be let's move with what we have unless anybody else disagrees.
No, it's fine.
It's fine with me.
Okay, we're good to
Okay.
go.
So
Bring
we'll
the
bring
person
that
on.
forward at the next meeting.
Please do.
Thank you.
Upcoming meetings, code enforcement is December 1st at 2:00. On the 2nd, 5:30 to 7:30 is Mingle and Jingle Holiday Food Truck. Do we want to chat about that a little bit?
No.
Okay, why don't I finish the announcements and then we'll circle back on that, okay? The 7th is a town commission meeting. The 9th is a planning board meeting. Let's circle back then. It's all yours.
So, and Lynella, you jump in, or Teresa, you jump in. So basically the Mingle Jingle event, we're polishing up the flyer that we'll get out to everybody. We're going to stay with the theme of the food truck, but we're going to get more food trucks. We'll probably get additional seating out into some spaces because we anticipate a bigger crowd. We will have the trolleys. Looks like those will probably fire up around 4:30. Start running the route as we had in the past. We'll try to get people a little map or identify. We'll work with Chief Hartman as we did last year, just where folks should be meeting to pick up the trolley. So we'll work on those final details, but those that want the trolley service there, we'll have music, 4 food trucks, dessert truck. We'll get some coffee, drinks, that kind of thing. Same kind of setup, but just on a larger scale. And then we'll also have, if you've noticed, we've got some of the tree lights up. We'll also get the rest of the holiday decor placed on Town Hall, and that will all be part of that experience on December 2nd. We'll add a little bit more time for like a 2.5 hour event, and we'll go from there.
Great. That ought to be fun.
It'll be a good time. I
I'll
promise.
just walk through how you're going to communicate this to the
So we'll
townspeople.
do some flyers is how we have done it in the past. We'll do the e-blast website. We put it in the manager's minute. We'll make sure, I believe the commissioner letter that's going out has it in it. We'll drop off some flyers if we want to the condo so they can let folks know. That kind of word of mouth, a couple emails, things of that nature.
Great. Ought to be a piece on the website, a pop-up right at the beginning. Anybody that comes on the site, see that first. Can we handle that?
Yep.
Teresa's shaking her head, yes.
Yep, that'll be
Okay, great.
Is there a Facebook page for the, I would recommend you put it, a few posts on the Facebook page.
Good suggestion.
We have about, how many friends? 20? What? 20 is a stretch? Okay.
But we can share also.
And then the Coastal Star will run an ad for us.
Ah.
Well, we wouldn't come out in time, would we? No. Okay. So we'll do everything we can to get it out there. Yep.
Just to add,
Right ahead.
and I may have missed it, is there a plan to have any particular celebrity attend? I know we've had Representative Caruso.
Outside of us.
I'm just wondering if there could be an invitation sent to some.
We will. We'll send it out to those that we know, all of our legislators, things of
Mhm.
that nature. I think Mike would probably show up.
Probably.
Depends how session's going. If they're
Right.
still there in that special session, they may take them out, but we'll let Weinroth know and all of our other
Okay.
representatives there. There's no formal program.
Mhm.
It's kind of a little more informal, music, food, friends, kind of that food event that we had, but on a larger scale. And we're trying to keep it more of a mingle jingle event to get people meeting each other rather than sitting for a formal thing and leaving. We want people to meet and greet their neighbors a little bit.
And of course, Rich has a formal invitation.
Yes, of
Standing.
course, of course.
Yeah, Mayor?
Yeah.
Bob Weinroth was named mayor of this morning.
Oh,
And
nice.
Greg Weiss,
Great.
vice
Oh.
mayor in the last hour. So
Wonderful.
of course, we'll invite him as well.
Sure.
And maybe Vice Mayor Weiss. He's a friend of the town.
Great. Definitely. And John, you'll have your presentation ready in time. Okay, any other thing before we move on? Great. Okay, there is a board action report attached, but there is nothing on there for us to move on unless somebody wants to discuss it for any reason. No? Okay, we'll move on to ordinances. Ordinance number 2021-011, an ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Highland Beach, Florida, amending the administrative amendments to the 7th 2020 edition of the Florida Building Code to provide for the reinspection and recertification of existing threshold buildings, providing for the repeal of all ordinances in conflict, providing for severability and codification, and providing for an effective date. This can be found on page 12, and we will turn it over to Jeff.
Just for the record, this is a second reading. The first reading was held on October 19th. So this is a second reading, excuse me.
Okay, Mayor, Commissioners, and first of all, at the October 19th Commission meeting, the Commission voted to pass this ordinance as a first read with some minor changes. The ordinance is again before the Commission as a second read after some minor modifications as a result of the first read. So I like to say things twice. Fiscal impact stays the same. There is no fiscal impact because we believe that the fees generated by the concrete restoration permits will easily cover the costs. And the attachments is the revision 8, the final version of the proposed building recertification ordinance. I also, just so you can see what it looks like, this is something that was put together at the International Code Council that is probably being considered by the Florida Building Commission. A sample electrical inspection form and a sample structural inspection form, just so you can see what they look like. We can have our own once this is solidified 100%, if that's today or another time, and then we can put something together. Honestly, I would probably recommend that we don't get as detailed as some of these because we're kind of directing them, whereas we want to be more of an administrator of this. And recommendation is that the commission second read and approve it as an ordinance, if you so please.
Okay. John, any comments?
Okay, well, I have a few comments to make. Unfortunately, I've gotten feedback, at least from one person, that's really been kind of a negative influence, if not a thorn, even when things are positive. So I'm now just trying to accommodate what I think is unreasonable, but I'll go forward and ask things like, is there any problem or issue or potential issue with having contractors and engineers register in order to certify a building in Highland Beach?
So we already register all contractors, and we would just simply register the engineers that are going to work for free solely for the purpose of having a list available to the public of registered contractors, of registered engineers. All right.
So there's no charge.
There's no charge.
Anybody can be listed,
Anyone can register.
but you will at least look at their credentials to make sure that they.
That's the sole purpose of the registration is to verify license, current license, insurance, registration, business tax license. And we keep track on the expiration dates of all of those. And once they're in our system and there's a current permit and something expires, we have to reach out to them and let them know that they have to update their insurance.
So isn't it true that as good practice, any town in Florida would expect to do the same thing?
But every single town does
Exactly.
do that.
Again, I'm asking questions. I think I know some of the answers, but for the audience who might be watching this in particular, at least one, I want to clarify that this is not an issue.
No, this has been
Let's
standard
back
practice.
up for a second. Building XYZ gets their notice from you. They go out and they hire an engineer and they start doing the work. That engineer has to first come and register with the town, or he or she just does the work. And then when the report comes in, they then get registered.
It's going to be at the time that they're going to submit the report. That's when we're going to, because we're not going to know what's going on until
Right.
we get the report. We don't know who they've hired. We have none of that information available to us.
So
So it's at that time, we're going to say, hey, we would like you to register with us so that we have a list of who's working. And if there is the possibility that another community or such a condo association wants to say, hey, we don't know who to pick, say, well, here's a list of who has registered with us as
no,
engineers.
That's very clear. I just wanted to back into the process. So we are not saying, hey, if you want to work in this town, you have to register. What we're saying, the process is the individual building goes out, finds their engineer, threshold engineer, the work gets done, the report gets submitted. We then ask the engineer if they would like to register with us because we have a list that we're forming so that any building that comes and asks us, we have a list that we can share with them. So we're not adding this to complicate a process. We're doing this so that we can assist our residents.
That is 100% correct concerning
Thank you.
engineers. Contractors, however, have to register or they cannot pull
We're
a
not
permit.
talking
That's
about
totally
contractors.
separate. Yeah,
We're not
two
talking about
separate items.
contractors. We've always required that from contractors. That's nothing new.
And any threshold engineer would obviously know to check with the town before he goes forward to accept the contract, to do all of the work and to come up with a report without even talking to the town.
Well, possibly, or
I mean, it's
possibly
possible,
not.
but it's,
It's not,
I
that-
have to
but
believe
that's, John, that's not the issue.
Yeah.
The issue is the process, and the process is not being compromised in any way.
okay, so that's one. The other thing is there's, I think, hold on one second, let me get my thoughts straight on this. Once work begins on a certification, and then the state comes out with their codes, is there a chance that something in the difference between the state, county, or Highland Beach would incur additional costs that were not necessary by a threshold engineer? That's in
So,
process.
okay, that's a great question. And so the answer is we don't know until we see what the language is from the state, if it's a state statute or if it's something in the Florida Building Code. But like most things, when something new comes out, whatever was done in the past was done in the past. It's that moving forward. So if someone already was compliant under ours a year ago and they have, let's say it's a 45-year-old building and they have 6 more years left before they have to recertify again, they won't have to comply with the state until they're due again, which would be on our time frame, which would be that the next year. Because we can always be more restrictive than the state. We just can't be any more lenient than the
But you're
state.
saying they're grandfathered.
Yeah, whatever was done under
Yeah.
ours. And whatever's new, I'm sure they just can't say, okay, you're on. We still have to slowly implement it in, but we're already implementing everyone in under a 2-year, or
Right.
under a 2-year program.
Well, then the other argument is, and by the way, that's excellent clarification. The other argument is, well, hell, why don't we just wait until the state does it? Why are we in a rush to do it now? And I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask you to explain why it's important for us to go forward now rather than wait for maybe next March when the state might come out with a new code.
Well, the state is looking at the entire state. We're looking at where you live. And we're looking at this town. We're looking at this town that is very unique. We're looking at this town that is on a barrier island and very different than someone who lives in Gainesville, Florida. Okay. This is a completely different area where we have a much more humid climate year round. Okay. And being on the beach, being in an area that is in a significantly higher wind zone than up in other areas, we need to take care of ourselves first. And just so that you know, this morning I was on a panel for about an hour and a half with the BCA, I think that's the Boca Condominium Association. Okay. And there were the BCA, plus they had some panelists in, a bunch of engineering firms, a GC firm, all that specialize in recertification. And the Boca building official and his boss were present. And there were no issue. Like, as a matter of fact, one of the things that the contractor brought up was that when you do restoration on a building, you may only do maybe 10% or 15% of the balconies that were bad at that time. And then you're resealing the building. This is an existing building. Now, a couple of years later, some of those things that were good may be bad. So that's why it's imperative that we have this timing. And it's really because of the experience that the contractors and engineers have and building inspectors have in this area in South Florida with the condition of the buildings is why we realize how important this is. And this is something that maybe we don't want to wait. And if we wait, we wait. It's your choice. But I think we're being proactive for all the right reasons.
Well, and I totally agree that being proactive for reasons that involve the safety and health of the community is more than appropriate. Now, at the same time, anything the state would pass in a legislature next March, if it's then passed, or we have to wait another year or whenever, 6 months before they do take action. Point is, do we really wait and rely on them when we already know what we need to do and that we should do it now rather than wait? There's no reason to wait. And anything that they end up passing, okay, it would be unusual for them to require things less than what we're doing. We're more stringent, I think, than even what the state would ask, based upon what has happened in Miami and Broward counties, if I'm correct. No?
Our particular program here puts more of the workload and the liability onto the engineering firm to let them do their job. So we still want, at the end of the day, a safe building, but their paperwork and their requirements and their checkoff sheets
Might be different.
are very directive towards the engineering firms. But I can't foresee anyone doing anything any more stringent than what we are doing. I
That's my
don't
point.
foresee that.
Okay. That's my point.
Okay, if I can add one thing to that, I've been told by a number of people that the state and the county will be coming out with recommendations, period,
Right.
recommendations.
Recommendations.
Yeah.
And we're working forward proactively to come up with an ordinance that gives guidelines so that, honestly, building management and all of these condos can take action now as well. I mean, they want to do it for the sake of their residents who are asking, hey, is this building safe?
But my point being, if we waited until, let's say, March, all we're going to get is recommendations.
Recommendation.
Then we're going to have to sit down and do what we're doing.
Anyway. Okay.
Yeah, and the other component to that is by the time this is approved and I notify people 1 year in advance when it's due, if the state comes down with something different within the next year, then they won't have had anything done other than maybe they already got their inspection completed. They wouldn't have started any
Right.
work more than likely. So there's a lot of time. They have 1 year before they even have to submit a report to us.
Right.
So
Right.
there's plenty of time for the state to take action. If the county takes action, it's not relevant at all because the county doesn't dictate what we do. The county only controls unincorporated areas. So they can make recommendations, but nothing that the county implements affects us.
And at the top of page 15, there's a statement that says, and may be amended, going forward. It would seem to me that no matter what we end up here, if there is a need to change anything, we can amend this anyway. If it's required to comply or to be cooperative with county and state code, recommendations or ordinances.
Right. So the top of page 15 is specific to due dates that could be amended by the building official. But any ordinance at any point could be tweaked and could be adjusted for all the right reasons, which is exactly what happened in Boca, is making some small changes and they're still making small minor changes to make it work. And that's the same thing that we have the ability to do. This is not something that's going to be etched in stone that we have to follow for the next 20 years.
Again, I'm just trying to clarify what I think is controversial, if not just negative perceptions that are not helpful. What I will also go to, however, is on page 21 on the form. I'm sorry, and maybe I'm too techie here, but on the form itself, I didn't see any place to put either email or phone addresses. Wouldn't that be a good thing to have?
Yeah, we're certainly going to have all that. Again, all I did was I simply took from the International Code Council, something that the Florida Building Commission is more than likely looking at. And I just brought this in solely as an example.
Okay.
I will tell you absolutely, as a matter of fact, one of the things I'm going to be putting in for this manager's the minute for this month is recommending that everyone create an account that's getting work done on our portal so that they can see everything. And we always want an email,
All right.
always.
And so adding that would be a good thing, as well as, and I think the request, I think it would be really important to have photographs as well as videos. I know you've mentioned photographs, but again, I think it has to be stated that you would want to have, especially on the critical areas, both photographs and videos for inspection.
Yeah, for the most part, it's standard practice for engineering firms to have photographic evidence
Right,
of
yeah.
all their
I'm just
inspections
looking at
and
the-
often included in their
The
reports.
form factor here that, you know, would. record that.
Absolutely.
Okay. And lastly, we're really only talking about, as it says on page 17, the report takes into account two basic considerations: structural components and deterioration of materials and any effect on the structural integrity of the building. That's where the focus is. That's where it's so important for us to go forward to do this ordinance. So you have my total support on this. Thank you.
Ellen?
I think John has done a very good job of covering these things. The changes we requested before have been incorporated. I have one question. Are there any threshold buildings in this town that have a single owner?
Good question.
Probably the church.
Yeah,
Except is the church a threshold?
Yes.
yes.
Because of the
More than-
capacity, because it's more than 500. Yeah.
Yes, because of the,
Yeah.
right, because it's an assembly with an occupant load of greater than 500. And I actually called the diocese to verify what they have as an occupant load before I made that decision. And then I did my own calculation and we come out with the same thing, very close,
And their load is about 600?
about 1,100.
Really?
Yeah, they can fit about 1,100 people in the building altogether legally.
Oh.
And
yeah, up
I,
and
uh,
down. I see.
In the hotel as well.
And the hotel, yeah. Delray Sands, it's more of the dining room buffet.
Plus, if you look at the guest area, you know, the rooms from the beach side, you'll see the height is much higher.
Okay. My other comments really are just correcting things, not what you're doing, but English. And I can give that to Linelda later. We don't have to discuss that.
Okay,
Thank you.
move on to Peggy.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I have to speak loud. Do we think someone's going to really sue us? As is being alleged around town that a building condo will sue us for having this program in place? I need to have that question answered. I think we all need to have that question answered. Have we had threats of lawsuit if we enact this?
And what
Thank
would
you.
the basis be for them suing us? That we asked them to have an
That's
inspection?
what I'm asking. Yeah. This is the rumor around town, just bringing it up to the open here.
To be,
Marshall?
I can't imagine that that's going to meet the level of.
I
a
hope
lawsuit.
not, but I
think
need,
that
it
would-
needs to be asked.
There's
and
no
addressed.
basis.
Marshall, have you heard anything to that effect?
No, I would think it would be tough because their engineers who they're hiring are making the recommendations to the
Understand.
correction. So if they disagreed with their engineers, I mean, it would be such a scenario that I don't know that that would come to fruition because the consultant you hired to say, hey, this beam needs to be repaired in 90 days because it's considered structurally. Jeff's going to say you got 90 days to get this corrected. I guess the building could say, we're not doing it in 90 days and then fight that fight, but then it would become a code compliance issue because once we're on
Right, I
notice
know.
that there is a safety issue. But again, I guess we could be sued for anything, for any purpose, but
Right.
Peggy,
Got to see.
The
Yes.
only feedback I've received has been positive about this.
Great, great. I'm just putting it out
I
there
will-
because I've heard these
From-
comments, so it needs to be addressed.
I want to point out that we
Yes.
specifically changed the language so that we
Yes.
didn't have any responsibility.
I
for
remember that
inspection.
meeting. Yes,
That
ma'am.
it's all, we're telling the condos, you must
Yes.
do this, but you control every
Yes.
aspect of
I
doing it.
believe I promoted that line of thinking
Mhm.
also, but I need to
Yeah.
have it answered because it's being talked about.
And-
I do know that I've talked to the offices of two legislatures and they're not sure what the state will do, if they will enact
Anything.
a statute or if they will not. Certainly, the building code of the state will address it, so that will be addressed. But the problem is, for example, the county. The county has very little land along the ocean and intercoastal where buildings are built. There's a county pocket in Ocean Ridge, for example, where the homes are literally flooded and sinking twice a year. And they bring in the fire department and it's behind Nomad Surf Shop, and they help buttress the problems there. Those are houses, they're not even condos. So the county isn't as rushing to produce an ordinance as we are, Boca is. And so that explains the county. And in the state, the League of Cities has done a superb job, and Jeff is one of the key people on that, as well as Boca. And I do believe that their efforts have been terrific. I love this ordinance, but I would just want to look at all the aspects. The reason the state will have to mull it over is because look at the state. There's the Panhandle with little wooden homes and fishing huts. And that's why they got wiped out a couple of times by hurricanes. They don't have a whole slew of high rises like we do from South Miami to past Singer Island, now into Martin County. So that's like a different state up there. It's like South Georgia, South Alabama. You've got the center of the state and the horse farms. You've got such a diverse landscape in Florida that the push has been to Southeast Florida and to a degree Southwest, which has less condos and high rises. So the state has to sort all of this out with all of representatives. And that's what they're going to have to do. Right now, they're up in special session on another matter altogether. But it doesn't mean that we and Boca and Delray and anyone else isn't taking a proactive approach. I think it's terrific. And if the county comes forth with something, as Jeff said, we don't have to abide it. And if the state does, of course, we will listen and tweak ours. But I ran into Scott Singer 10 days ago at a league event, the mayor of Boca, and he said, why would we not do something? Why would we just sit back and say, oh, well? And I thought, that's a great comment. So I just think we have to consider all these different elements. It's like the north part of the state is very different from the southern part of the state, from, say, Orlando down. And I don't have a problem putting this forth, and we'll see how it goes, and we can tweak it as we go.
Can I
That's it.
ask one question, not of you? It's my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, please, that county-owned property within the borders of our town are still responsible to abide by our building code. So it doesn't really matter what they do, they have to do what we say.
Right.
So if that helps.
I have a map of the county that I'll provide to all of you if you'd like to see. 1/3 of our county is undeveloped land.
Yeah.
1/3 is Big Sugar, and the rest are municipalities.
Okay. good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Natasha?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify something. Commissioner Shoemaker emphasized that a lot of this is about structural integrity, but I think including the electrical piece of it is also really important. You know, these buildings that are especially over 50 years old, you know, the electrical systems, I think that is another really critical and important feature of this. And I think the other reason I'm in favor of this, by the way, I think the other reason to do this is, you know, hopefully all these condos are now with a heightened awareness are doing what they need to do to maintain the building. But I think like some of the residents, they just aren't completely informed, aren't completely aware. So I think they kind of need us as the backstop to have this as an enforcement piece. I mean, really, if everybody took care of their buildings like they're supposed to, we wouldn't even need this. If everyone was completely informed, we wouldn't even need this. But, you know, we need this as an additional layer of enforcement, especially for those residents who just really aren't aware of all the consequences of not making sure the structural and electrical integrity of the building are safe. So I just wanted to, for me, that is one of the big reasons why I'm in favor of it. And it sounds like from the building department's perspective, you have the capacity to oversee the processing of these permits. One of the reasons that the county cited as to why they didn't, want to move forward with this at this time is that their staff is stretched pretty thin at the building department. And I think, some of the things that I heard them say was there are some other issues that are very pressing at the county level, and that perhaps they don't have the capacity to, I forget, I mean, it's like 2,400 buildings or something like that, or what would meet this threshold building. And, a lot of them, I guess, don't have, potentially a structural problem. So they would rather prioritize in another way. And I don't think we have that issue. We don't have the same issues that they have at the county level. We have the capacity in the building department to do these 2 buildings a month for the next 2 years. I guess my one question about Boca, have they established a schedule yet? Like, I know they've passed the ordinance. I know they're gearing up to build out the department. I know, my understanding was there's like 240 buildings. They want to do 60 buildings a year, but have they actually established what their start date is for, sending out these year notices?
So they did talk about that a little bit. They didn't give numbers, but they said they're sort of tweaking that in order to make this work. When I talked to their building official, they were going to add 3 new positions just solely to be able to handle the workload coming in. But I believe that that's still a work in progress as far as the rollout. And what they did is I believe they separated Boca into 7
Yes.
separate sections.
Right,
And the focus, where do you think the focus is? It's the east.
right.
It's the east. So
Right.
the number one priority is everyone on the barrier island.
Yeah, I think they identified 60 buildings on the barrier island, and they wanted to get, those were the first zone to be done in the first year. So even though they've passed the ordinance before we have, I believe we will actually, our schedule is already potentially in place. We may actually start giving notices before any other town does. And I think that's appropriate. Yeah, and I guess I want to give another plug for your system for capturing information for the building permits. I went in for a demonstration of the system, and I would just encourage anyone, if you have a building permit open, yeah, you can just add your email to the system. And then when these emails go out to the contractors, you're automatically included. So I was pretty impressed by the system that you have, and the improved communication just by adding your email. So I would encourage, people to do that. So that's it.
Okay, thanks.
Mayor, could I just comment on both of their comments? As far as Mayor Singer goes, I have an answer to his question. Why would we not do something? And I think commissions that are careless, that is, they don't care to be responsible, are really saying they're irresponsible. And on any commission, on any dais, we have to be responsible for the safety and welfare, and we need to be proactive about it. That's number one. Number two, and I think what the Vice Mayor Moore is talking about in my book, is that all of that summarizes into one word, which is trust. That the town folk, our residents need to have trust that we're managing the town properly, that their buildings are safe, and that their living here will be safe. And with the necessary support needed for a healthy lifestyle. So all that comes down to being responsible and having trust. Just wanted to share that again as a reinforcement.
Can I clarify one point?
Uh,
You have to wait. When
You'll
we
get your
talk-
turn, Mayor, don't worry.
When we are talking electrical, we are talking the main electrical systems of the building. We are not talking about going into each
Right.
individual apartment.
Right,
We're
That-
not looking at that wiring.
right.
That is correct. And if the building so chooses to have them go in, which they have done in Boca and some other areas in
That's-
Miami-Dade, because we had some electrical guys there. You know, if the building wants to do that, that's great. We're concerned about the overall main electrical system, that it functions, that it's operate, and we're really interested in those deficiencies that are critical or dangerous. That's what we're interested in.
Thank you. I think there was some misconception about what was going on.
Anything else?
I
from
have one more
anybody?
thing. You know, of course, the safety of our residents is the utmost important, but you also can't forget this adds value to your property. If a condominium can say, we did this report and whatever the results are, whether they pass with flying colors or they've identified issues that, you know, critical issues that need to be done and they're working on them, that adds value to that condominium. And to be honest, it's going to give value to the town of Highland Beach that in general, that condos are in good condition. So
Absolutely.
I think that is a really important component to all this as well.
Absolutely. And to delay the mayor even further, I will share some more information along those lines that I learned today. I had mentioned a few meetings ago, and again, we're here for safety, but there's another component of it where one of the condos had some of their switchgear blow out on one floor, and in 1 month, they spent just under $100,000 for a generator. And I just spoke during the meeting with the BCA this morning, found out that there was a building in Boca that very recently blew a switchgear, and 3 months, almost just over $700,000 to run 3 separate generators. And because right now to get electrical equipment is near impossible. And so if you wait till something goes wrong, it's going to cost you so much more money. Whereas if you be proactive and you get your stuff. So again, I'm talking along the lines of monetary, which is not why we're here, but I think that's one of the benefits of this. One of the byproducts of what we're doing is ensuring that these buildings can actually, you know, potentially save money in the future by not waiting till there's a catastrophic loss of event in the electrical.
Absolutely. You take care of these problems now, you're going to save money in the long run. No question about it. On electrical, and then I'll move on. I don't want people to be super concerned about the huge costs of getting the engineers in to do the inspections. Our building's 122 apartments, so it's a little larger than the average size building. We just had the electrical inspection done. We're waiting for the report. Fortunately, not major issues were found, nothing major, fortunately. But the inspection itself was $6,000. Now, that's not chump change by any means, but we're not talking about, you know, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 for an electrical inspection. So you're not talking huge amounts of money here by any means. And it was done in a half a day. And no, they didn't go into anybody's apartment. Okay. So not a big deal. Also, I totally agree with the vice mayor on the fact that there are buildings that do need a push on our part because no, they have not been doing the work on keeping their buildings up. And you do need somebody to look over their shoulder and help them along the way sometimes. And here we are. That's part of our job here. No question about it. I do want to refer us to page 18, if we can take a look, please. It's on, we look at number 4, time frame to make repairs or modifications. Be on the third line, starting with notwithstanding the foregoing, all repairs shall be completed within a maximum of 365 days. Notwithstanding the foregoing is the major structural and electrical. I should have picked this up on the first read, but we shouldn't be requiring them to do any repairs that are not major. right?
I may be reading that differently because it says shall correct all major and critical structural or electrical deficiencies identified, and this is notwithstanding the foregoing, notwithstanding the foregoing, all repairs shall be complete. I know it says all repairs, but in my interpretation, and I think we have to refer to Glenn on this one.
Well,
This is
correct me if
referring
I'm
back,
wrong
this is
then. Yeah,
referring
we-
back to the previous sentence.
I may
of-
be misinterpreting it.
No, it-
Major
Yeah,
and
or
critical.
Yeah, that's how I read it.
Yeah, I'm,
That's the way I read it.
yeah, I'm seeing major and critical, but I would like to weigh. Yeah. all
Okay,
such-
I'd be
such-
comfortable with that. See,
yeah.
I read it as you got to repair everything,
Oh, yeah, no.
the way it
No.
reads now.
One word, such. Give me a break.
Yeah. Yeah, if we add that, it would then be clear to me that we're only dealing with major. Okay, if we can do that, everybody comfortable with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had. The rest of the conversation, obviously, I agree with. Okay, are we finished?
I'm finished.
Anybody have anything else to add on the document itself? Are we ready to pass this? We need a motion.
I move that we accept ordinance number 2021-011 as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, can you read it for a roll call?
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, thank you. I was supposed to have asked for public comments, but got anything, Ron? Okay. All right, well done. Let's move on to ordinance number 2021-016. An ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Highland Beach, Florida, calling for a referendum of the qualified electors of the Town of Highland Beach to be held on March 8th, 2022, as to whether section 2.01 parens 30 of the Town of Highland Beach Charter shall be amended to revise the funding limits, providing for notice and advertising of the referendum, providing for the referendum canvassing, providing for severability, the repeal of laws in conflict, codification, and the effective date. Now, hold all tickets for a second. Okay, this is to revise the limits. The next one below is to eliminate the limits. So just want to back up a little bit. Our last conversation on this was to put two questions in. Obviously, one was drop all limits, and the other was 5% of the total of the budgets to manage our town. We're dealing now with the total of all budgets. The current budget is $20.5 million. So we're looking at $1,250,000. I did some back of the hand research over the weekend, basically reviewing with some people that I know, asking their opinion, giving them a little bit of background on where we stand, why we need to do this, what the issues are with running our town today versus what it was back 30 years ago when the 350 was set. And the trials and tribulations we've gone through as a team in the last year or so. And that we were looking at putting two questions on. And I told them what the questions would be. And the feedback I got was, one, confusion, saying, well, wait a minute, I'm not sure. You mean it would be no limit or 5% of the operating? Well, it was like, I'm not sure what to do. A couple of people said, I don't like the idea of no limit. And I said, well, remember I told you, we're like the only town in all of South Florida that we could find that had no limit. Well, that didn't have a limit, that nobody else had limits.
No, everybody, right, no one has.
No one else had limits. We were the only one. And they kind of didn't care. Okay. I said, I kind of like the idea of a limit. Then the third group understood it. And some said, I'd vote yes on both. And the other said, I would vote yes on the percentage. Now, complicate this even further. I got a call from our esteemed counsel here, said I did my research that I was instructed to do and found that there are 6 states throughout the nation that have no law covering if you get a positive on both questions. So if we got 51% or more positive response on both questions, there's no governing law to tell us what to do. So I said, well, whichever one got the most votes, that's what we would do. He said, well, maybe it should be the one that got the highest percentage votes. The bottom line being, whichever one we do, it could be challenged that we did the wrong one. Okay, so now you have all the background. The more I thought about it personally, once I started to hear all this, was we really should not have 2 questions. My opinion, we should do only the one question, and that one question should be the 5% question. And we should drop the question of no limit. Although quite honestly, as a business person, I guess, and as a political person, which is what we all are now, like it or not, the no limit is the most appropriate way to run our town. However, with the experience that our town has gone through in the recent past, particularly the $45 million debacle, I think it's best for our town to go with the 5%. We can run it that way. We run into a situation where it doesn't cover us, we go to referendum. I mean, that's what it's there for. So my recommendation to the group is we don't even consider ordinance C, and we just concentrate on the one that's in front of us now and forget about the other idea. Start with John.
So I guess I arrived at the same conclusion from a different path. I was really more focused on the controversy and the confusion that this would cause. And the tendency of people who may not understand it or see it being complicated to just say no to everything.
Well, some of those I got back in the handful of people that I chatted with. I'm talking about a dozen people. That's it.
Right.
But there were some there, definitely.
So to me, it's also not a good time because let's go halfway this time and have a reasonable limit. And then once we've proven the responsibility and the fiduciary responsibility of the dais, that hopefully in the next commission after the election, at some point, if it's needed, then we could ask one question, which is to eliminate the limits. But I don't see any need to do that anytime soon.
Yeah, I think that's way down the road sometime.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we believe we can live with the 5%. If we find the 5% is insufficient, we could talk about 6 or 7%, but to go with no limit, I don't think our town's ready for that, nor do I think we need that. So I think
Well, I
we
agree.
just drop it.
That's where I'm at.
Next.
All right. Well, I had a problem with 2 from the beginning because language of referendums can be very difficult and convoluted, and people don't understand it anyway. And if you're giving them 2 referendums on basically the same issue, forget it. People are going to throw their hands up in the air.
Well, that's what happened when I just was, yeah.
And yeah, I could see where people would vote no on both because they just didn't understand what was going on and they were confused. So
you're
I'm
right.
definitely in favor of having the one. I don't know if we would do it, how we would change it, but I would like to put something in there that builds in a cost of living increase or an increase annually based on some,
Well, it
Standard
would be, if we do the 5%, that just runs with the budget.
oh, okay, that works. Okay, that's,
Okay,
yeah, that answers the question.
Yep.
Thank you.
okay. Peggy, where do you come out on this?
I'm against the 5%.
Okay,
And here's why. If you go over the listing of, tell me if I don't speak loudly enough. First, I'll give you my magic number. My magic number is $870,674. So call it 870 and 24 cents. And here's how I came to that. Because if you look at the listing that Marshall and provided a couple meetings ago. Again, this refers to the history of the town, which I provided to you all through some news articles of past managers and commissions. But if you look, our referendums passed with flying colors in the 90s, including limiting commissioner and mayor terms to 3 years, bonds, funding at the limit of $350,000, the water plant being built, the library being built. And then in 2003, they looked to increase the 350 spending limit and it failed 2-1 and was maintained at 350. So that was 2003, less than 10 years, oh no, about 12 years after the initial. And then the commission term limits were reduced. And the streetscape failed. The 015 $2.1 million sidewalk repaving. And then the knucklehead 45 million referendum failed. So if you look back to 2003, there became in this town, in my opinion, a strong suspicion of town government. And I'm not sure why. We could call a few longtime residents. And we're changing that. The 5 of us, Marshall, our building department, we're changing that and effectively bringing the residents up to speed of everything, fire department, sewer system, everything. But in 2003, everything went downhill. And in that time period, 5 town managers were fired, 3 commissioners got sued.
excuse me,
It was a
one
bad time.
second. How much did they ask for in 03?
Yes, sir.
That got turned
Yes,
down?
sir. So that's, I'm trying to guide everyone here a little bit. They ask for increase of 10%. That's all. So in a perfect world, I agree with Ron Riami, who said on camera 3 meetings ago, who's here today, put on your big boy pants and let's let the commission guide everyone in the future and not worry about spending limits because we'll do the right thing. But what happens in this town, for whatever reason, and I'm not sure, is the public and the residents about 18 years ago got suspicious of government. And so I hate to just throw a big amount out there that's over $1 million, and I feel like they might enact that behavior again. I don't know. I'm not here to say your idea is wrong or we're wrong. I don't know. But if you look at, I spoke to John Rand, our esteemed former vice mayor, who served in a very, very difficult time when a town manager went home for 2 months and called in her reports. Very difficult time. And I spoke to him and he was featured recently on Commissioner Shoemaker's report. And he said, yeah, the 350 is ridiculous. And he was one of the guys who enacted it. He said, it's just plain dumb. He said, you can't buy a condo in town for that anymore.
Right. Yeah.
And he said, I would put it in million. And so then I took this inflation calculator. Where is it? And I produced an update of what, it's online. It's obviously posted by many different money management firms. I plugged in 350,000 from 1990 to 2021. And the figure that comes up is basically 747 and change. And then I plugged in, I rounded it to 740. Then I plugged in 740 2021 to what this would provide a figure for 2031. and it came up 1,096,338. So we're looking at with just inflation, the cap should be 740 and change. And then in another 10 years, it's at 196, but who knows, because inflation now is rampant and we can't even fill up my truck under $100. But so here's what I did. I took John Rand's $1 million and the inflationary version of 350 to now, and I divided it by 50%, and it came up with my figure. And I think if we could keep it under $1 million, it has a better chance of passing.
First
That's
of
it.
all,
So if you do 950 or 850 or 900 or 870, my number, I think it's got a better chance. I think $1 million is going to
Okay.
scare people away. So that's my report.
thank you. Natasha?
Just a clarification, Commissioner Gossett-Simon, are you talking about a fixed number or were you?
Good question. A fixed number, but I would possibly, among a discussion of ours, build in a cost of living, either annually or biannually or something to that effect, because obviously 860 or 870 or 740 now is not going to last for 10 years. The hiccup here is if we set a fixed amount, the 5% or my number or anybody's number, it's not going to last for 10 years. And who knows? Look at inflation now. Can't even get paper towels. So who knows? Maybe inflation in 5 years will be astronomical, maybe not. So if we probably would need a fixed number, but if we go over $1 million, it bothers me and it scares me based on the history of our town. And I think the 5 of us need to be aware of the history. I really do.
I definitely agree. Inflation is a critical piece that we need to keep in mind as we make decisions. I definitely have issue with pegging it to a specific amount. Just taking the 870, assuming a 5% inflation over the next 10 years, that value ends up being 630,000. We're in the same position we are today. So I definitely feel strongly it has to be an inflation sensitive amount. I am very much in favor of doing the 5% of the total budget, the option number 2 that we have now. I am also in favor of dropping that other question of having no limit. I definitely agree that I just don't think our town, it's a big leap to go from something as low as 350 to no limit. I just don't think it's a realistic. I want to be realistic on what we can do. I guess I would just point out the point that Commissioner Gossett-Simon raised about having it, perhaps considering 870,000. I just want to point out that's a $155,000 difference. I think that's a pretty small difference. I think having it pegged 5% to and I really like the total budget number. There's no question of shifting funds or confusion of funds. So I think just the total fund, I think is the right benchmark. It's inflation sensitive. It's a nice round. I like 5%. I think if we did 3 or 4 or 6 or 7, I like round numbers. 5% of total budget, I think just makes a lot of sense. So my recommendation would be to have one question, 5% of the total budget.
Just a couple of things. I'm going to respond to some of the things that Peggy brought up also. Obviously, first of all, I like the 5%. I want to drop the thing. So you and I are in complete agreement for many of the reasons that you stated. First of all, Ron's putting your big boy pants on. Ron wanted 10% of the budget. That would be double where we are. So we're putting shorts on, not long pants. Okay. But Ron's rationale was valid for 10%. It truly was. However, I just don't think that has a chance in hell of passing. So for the reasons that you were saying, I think 5% will pass, but I just don't think 10 will. I just don't think our town's ready for 10. And quite honestly, we think we can make it with 5. So why go for the 10? That's the only reason that I cut it in half. The other thing is running any kind of indexing off of the 350 that was set 30 years ago, I believe is the absolute wrong approach. And here's why. Number one, we really don't know what the town was faced with in terms of its management responsibility 30 years ago. Nobody here to really tell us all that. But we do know what our responsibilities are today that did not exist then. We have a much expanded police department. We have a water plant that is far greater and far more costly to operate than the water plant did back then. It now exists here, obviously. We know the wells are different. We know the whole reverse osmosis facility is far more costly to operate. And unfortunately, when it goes down, it costs more. Okay. And I won't go through all the pieces of it. We all know the pieces of it. We're going to have a fire department. The heavy equipment and the heavy listing for a fire department has big ticket items in it. Didn't exist back then. So you can't put 2% or 3% or 4% compounded against 350, come up with a number and say, that's the number we need today. That's a fool's errand. It does not work. So anybody that's looking at it out there or here that way is just taking a wrong approach. We have to look at what is it going to cost to run this town today and how do we manage that moving forward over the next X number of years. One always thinks of 10 years because that's our requirement to review the charter, but we can do it in 5 years. We can do it whenever we think it's necessary to do it. And the $1 million or the $1.25 million that this happens to compute to today is really the bare minimum of what is necessary for the decision-making requirements that we're going to be faced with. Now, we don't have to buy or be ready to buy a $1 million fire truck tomorrow. But as this escalates over time, we think we'll have enough. But there might be requirements to dig a new well for $1.5 million. Well, that's going to have to go to the electorate, and they're going to have to make the decision. That's beyond our capability. So I think this is the right approach. I'm glad that 4 of us agree. Peggy, I hope I convinced you. I think that's the right way to go. I do understand totally. I mean, I did unit pricing for years in my career. You don't want to go over $10. You don't want to go over $100. $98.50 sounds better than 100, but this happens to compute to that number. That's all. 4% would not, but it is what it is. And I think it's the right thing to do. So I'm sticking with it as well. Go ahead, Peggy.
Yes, sir. I agree in philosophy. The difference between my number and your number is about $38 a person. So it's not earth shattering, but I think the appearance is a problem. I just do.
I just think
the
we
appearance
need,
of over $1 million is a problem.
I think we need an
So,
educational
I'm hoping it's
campaign
not.
to explain to the electorate how we came to this realization that this is the way we think we should approach it, and explain to them, why it's necessary to do that. And then that's a responsibility that we have. So
Are we ready to talk about the
So-
actual?
let's now talk about the ordinance and the details within it and see if it's acceptable. So John, start with you.
So, I have to admit my own failing here. I usually don't spend a lot of time going through and reading all of the whereases for all of the ordinances that we produce. But this time I did pay particular attention. And I thought after the 4th one going down, whereas pursuant to section the town has the governmental, corporate, and proprietary powers, so and so forth. I thought at this point, we should add another whereas. And the whereas, I'm thinking, I'll just give you some wording, that the current limit was established 10 or more years ago and does not account for major changes in town facilities and responsibilities. To reinforce what the mayor was just saying, not knowing you were going to say that, of course, but I think it's important to put in, that's one of the reasons why we're doing this. Secondly, as I look at the actual wording on page 47, section 6 at the bottom of the page, I'd make a couple of changes. You may not like them, but one is to delete the words combined operating and enterprise fund and just use 5% of the town budget, or you could add the total town budget. But I don't think people are going to say, oh, wait a minute, there's an enterprise fund, or there's two enterprise funds, there's an operating budget. Isn't it just the town budget? In reality, it's one number. It's the town budget. So I'm saying the total town budget is not misleading in any way. We may want to, in educational efforts, explain that the town budget is made up of enterprises and
I don't
operating
know.
budgets and
I
all
think
that
it's
stuff.
referred to as the trim.
I'm sorry?
I think it's referred to as the trim.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to see if I can come up with maybe a better thing. What we pass, the commission passes its budget resolution in September, and it is your total budget that you report to the state includes all funds. And that's basically what you're looking at, is an all funds budget. Is what you're basing that
Oh,
calculation on.
well, if that's the terminology,
That's what I'm gonna try to. make
maybe
it
it's
exact.
total of all budgets or total all budgets.
I think you could say,
I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
John, and I agree with you.
Yeah, total
But-
budget to me seems a very easy thing to understand, even using,
Well-
involving things like trim or involving things like all funds.
Or maybe just
Well, how many funds are there?
total of all budgets.
Now you get into a discussion about, well, how many budgets do you guys have?
Well, I don't think we can just use total.
Then I'm going to say that I have my own budget here. I've given myself a raise in my budget, by the way.
No, I hear you.
Okay,
And
so
I think-
that's my
and I think
input.
you're right. I agree. We just have to figure out how to say it.
I'll look to our lawyer. Suggestion. I'm wide open. Well, not really.
How about if we turn to page 48 first? I'm going to go backwards, Commissioner. 48 paragraph, section 2-01 funding limits, the actual language that's in the charter, that's going to be changed. Where it says any single project, requiring an allocation of more than 5% of towns combined operating and enterprise fund budgets. Why don't we put in parens, quote, total budget? So we're defining it in the charter that the total budget is the operating and enterprise funds budget. And in the ballot question, you just say the word total budget because you've defined it in the legislation itself.
Exactly.
Does that meet that goal? It's still
Good.
transparent. Anybody can see the legislation. This is only a summary of the legislation, and it's a fair and accurate summary. If that, Commissioner,
fine with
I
that.
think that gets
What
where
do you
you were
think?
trying to get to.
Yeah, I can go along with that, sure.
You like that?
Yeah, I mean, because we have to, if you don't get at least somewhat specific, you open yourself up to too much interpretation,
Right.
and you don't want that. You want
That's
it
exactly
to
right.
be
Yeah,
clear
but
where
I
you're
want-
going.
but I also don't want to hide it from the vote.
No.
Yeah,
no,
and that's
no,
not the intent.
Hiding it.
We just don't want to
Just-
confuse people.
Right, right. You want to repeat that, please?
Sure. So I'll start it right from the beginning. Any single project or accumulation of projects or extension of town services requiring allocation of more than 5% of the town's combined operating and enterprise fund budgets, parens, quote, total budgets, close quote, close parens, in any given fiscal year.
Okay, I think the or accumulation of projects is very confusing.
Again,
where we have or accumulation of projects is very confusing. One could interpret that in a number of different ways, and it's not necessary. Why do we even have it in the wording?
I 100% agree with me. That's a bedeviling phrase that is wrestled with, I'm sure, with every lawyer since 1991 when this was first adopted. You struggle. What is accumulation of projects?
Yeah, well, the intent, and correct me if I'm wrong, is any single project.
I would think
We
that's
don't
the
want
intent.
any single project to be more than today, $350,000, period. End of discussion. So why do we need or accumulation of?
Because that's already in the.
Well,
charter,
what
right?
I'm saying is we are now adjusting that.
Right.
So I think we ought to just take it out.
I
just
circled
eliminate it.
that specifically because accumulation of projects, well, if I have project 1, 2, and 3, and I
got
do it in different
I got it
months,
highlighted here.
Yeah.
I think we just eliminate it.
couldn't agree more.
Okay.
Take it out.
There has
That we
never,
got a nice, clean
Right.
statement that everybody understands.
and there's never been a definition of cumulative projects. It could be anything.
Yeah, so,
Right. It-
All right,
It could
it's-
be 5
I mean, you
completely
could add
disparate
all the
projects.
Right.
projects that you
It's-
do over the course of a year. is
it's done,
cumulative
it's done,
projects.
it's done. Okay.
Done.
And then if I could go back to the other whereas clause that Commissioner Shoemaker mentioned, if you want to add that, I've got some proposed language for that. Between the fourth and fifth whereas,
Mhm.
whereas the current limit was established in 1991 and does not account for major changes in the town's responsibilities. And I think I lost your last word,
Facilities,
facilities.
because
and
we've added the water, we're going to
town's
have
facilities and
fire.
responsibilities. So if you want to add that to the whereas, that's easy enough to add.
For people reading the ordinance, they would understand why we're doing it. And that's part of the reason why we're doing it in reality. Probably one of the most important reasons.
Yeah.
Our world has changed, folks.
So we're limited to 75 words.
75 words in the ballot
Heading.
summary.
In the sum.
In this, the bottom of page 47, that's what your limit is. You're limited to that ballot summary.
Not on
So,
the ordinance.
so
Not
why
in the
don't
ord-
we say something like, in an effort to support the new fire department, the needs of the water plant, to let people realize that this 350 has to be increased.
In the
Could be-
narrative, if there's
Yeah.
enough.
If
there's enough words to say it.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to get tight on our wording, but I mean, we're going to go through an educational campaign, but it's still not going to reach everybody and not everybody's going to remember it. I mean, it's just like what we did for fire,
Yeah.
We had a little bit of cell in it.
We could take
Because
a
the way it
stab.
would read now with the changes we've already talked about, shall the town of Highland Beach amend its charter as section 2.0130 to provide that the funding limits be increased from 350,000 to 5% of the town's total budget. That would be the new language. It's succinct,
But how many words?
Oh,
It's
probably no more than 25.
Yeah, but the point is, I think, then you could say, the town budget
Well,
in support of the growth, current facilities and responsibilities.
I would think I would start with that in an
There you go,
effort
remember, it's
to.
always
Start, end of
in the form
start.
of a question. You're always asking a question with a yes or no at the end.
Right.
So, I'm always, I know people think lawyers are wordy. I try to be succinct on these because you want people to say, here's the question, here's the answer,
Yeah, but
and not get them lost in but we
But-
could add more
But
words.
if I'm coming in cold, why do I want to increase it?
Right.
Life's good here.
So in the very beginning, and I think it's right. In the very beginning, you could start off by saying to support the growth, facilities and responsibilities of Highland Beach, shall the town amend its charter, blah, blah.
And we kind of want to, you got to touch on what that growth has been. The increase in the population or the increase in the police department, the addition of the fire department, blah, 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 shows the need.
Right. Now you're into word count. And that's something.
Well, do you want to start with the words to support, or do you want to start with the word do? And the following would be to support / do to the growth of in facilities and responsibilities of the town of Highland Beach. Shall the town of Highland Beach amend its charter? Do you like starting with the words to support? Or the
I like
words
do
to-
because it's one word, not two.
We have plenty of words here.
Oh, okay.
You know, we're not, believe me, I've been at points where I'm at 76 words and trying to find that last word, but here we got a lot to play with. Because this is a pretty straightforward question. So
Yeah.
DUE do or to support? What sounds better
To support.
to support?
I think to support.
Well, let me read it one more time to make sure I got my chicken scratch right here. To support the growth in facilities and responsibilities of the town of Highland Beach, shall the town of Highland Beach amend its charter at section 2.030 to provide that the funding limits be increased from 350,000 to 5% of the town's total budget.
And I don't know if you have to say Highland Beach twice. That's all.
I know, as I read it, I'm like, we're saying it twice. That sounds a little weird.
Yeah.
And do we put in parentheses what that dollar amount is today? Like how do they know what 5%
I would think
Yes.
that's educational.
is?
To be honest,
Is that
I think so.
included in the
I wouldn't put
question?
that
in our campaign.
Just
Yeah.
put it in the campaign,
Yeah,
not put it.
I wouldn't put that in here.
And then the other thing to me that I find confusing, I don't know if other people would find confusing, when we say budget, to me, budget is like the full budget with all the different line items. When I look at, like, how do people know when we say budget that we mean like that bottom line? So when I look at the financial report, it's that line item is called total net position. When I look at what was presented at the budget meeting, I think it wasn't there, but I think it's perhaps the total revenue line.
No.
How does
I see what you're saying.
somebody know what line they're pulling from? The management letter calls that the total net position of total activities for the town.
How about the total annually adopted budget?
Well, we're required to have a balanced budget.
Right,
So you could say total town revenues,
right.
or
Yeah,
you
because
could
you have
say
the revenue or
expenditures.
the expenditures,
You could
right?
say either one because they
Right.
have to be balanced.
Right,
Now, the question then becomes, what would non-financial people understand the best?
right.
I don't know the answer to that one. Probably revenues, total town revenues.
That is what we start with in our presentation in the budget is revenues.
Top line.
And we call it total revenue. That bottom line is called
Mm-hmm.
total revenue.
But also, nobody sees these. Except,
They
the
don't.
the handful of people that
Look
watch.
for it, right.
But
You want something that you can look up. Like I had a hard time even finding what was that, that 20.5
yeah, but
million.
what I'm saying is
Um,
95% of the people are not going to look it up.
Really?
You really-
99%.
That's the first thing I would do. That's what I tried to do, is try to find that
Yeah,
number.
but
Yeah,
you're.
but you're on a diet, so we're coming to the
Yeah,
diet.
but the vast majority of people are not going to look.
Okay, well, I think we we have,
But
so I'm a
but
little
you're right. We
uncomfortable with
shouldn't just
budget.
say budget.
Yeah, I think there needs to be like a line item that people say,
If-
oh,
if-
okay.
Yeah. Financial people know what a budget is, but non-financial people, I'm with you, they got to know what to look for.
Right.
So let's say revenues,
Total
total.
revenue for for all activities. I don't know. That's
Yeah,
how the
total
management
town
letter
revenue.
words it. It's all activities. Or you guys can work it out. It needs to be something that we can find.
Yeah,
in
I
my
wouldn't,
opinion.
I wouldn't use the word activities. I would use total town revenues because once you
Okay,
start
or
adding
total
other
town
words in,
revenues.
What,
it becomes way more
one,
complicated.
one other thing, what have you been communicating in your monthly communication piece?
Usually
you-
we say total budget, but we also look total revenues, total expenditures. I would say the word total because you got interfund transfers too, that kind of sway
Right.
one side of that equation to the other to
Right.
balance.
Right.
I mean, it's
So,
kind of
but-
wonky.
but
You don't want to get
things-
stuck in that,
No,
but I mean,
but things that you have been sending out to the general public.
I should say
What
total budget.
terminology?
Yeah, total budget,
Budget. So-
budget.
So then that's what they
Because we,
used
we
to.
adopt a budget resolution that has our total budget. So everything, we use the word budget all the time.
Okay. So
And all your condos do
Okay.
the same thing. It's a
Time out.
budget.
Yeah, they know from condos, they know budget.
I just
What
think,
what does the press use? Does the press use total budget? Does the press refer to budget?
Yeah.
Well, then we ought to stay with the word
And,
budget.
and businesses use budget. You know, they don't go into all of the different budgets inside it, like the marketing department's budget. and
well,
that
to
sort
me,
of thing.
to me,
No,
the
no.
budget is the whole package. It's all the line items of the whole package.
Yeah,
I
but
just-
what we're saying here though is that when people hear the word budget, this is what our total budget is. They're thinking that's either what your total spending is or what your total revenue is, because in most cases, revenues and expenditures
Right. Have to balance.
are balanced.
Right.
So that is the term people are used to seeing and hearing. That's what we should use. Okay, what's next?
Sounds like household budget to me.
Okay, so
Well,
we're going to put a little bit of sell into it about the additional things that we're going to have to be spending money on that support going from the 350,000 up to the 5%. And we're going to eliminate the
Well, we have to agree on the language today.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
This is
the
first
formulation
reading,
of
so
projects.
once we-
I
Okay,
want to
so
make
what-
sure everybody's comfortable with, you said what, growth of facilities?
Well, that's why I'm reading a
Growth,
couple of times. That's what the commissioners.
facilities, responsibility.
No, I want to mention what they are. Everybody knows about. We passed fire. 89% of 1,490 people that voted for fire. It's obvious that you're going to have to spend more money to run a fire department.
But when the 350 was established, we didn't have water in that.
Right.
building.
We didn't have the water department. So I want to mention those in it.
The creation of water and fire and E EMS.
I'm just trying to
Well,
understand
but you
what you
have
want
to
to
say, for example, because you can't limit it to that. And to be honest,
Fine.
our hands have been tied.
We have a
There
much
have been
larger
A lot
town.
of things. So that 350 was never adequate because there were things we couldn't do. Because right now, never mind going forward with future expenditures because of the fire department.
Right.
and everything.
So maybe it's
now.
to support the growth, the population growth of the town and
creation of the fire department, the
Creation of the
expansion
fire
of police
department.
services, and the implementation of a reverse osmosis water treatment plant.
perfect.
Say that again.
Perfect.
Perfect. Preacher's got it. You didn't get it? Ah. So I
Mayor?
would
Say it
say
3 times fast.
the growth of the population, the creation of a fire department, the expansion of police services, and
Creation of,
the construction of a
osmosis
reverse
plant.
osmosis water treatment plant
it's creation of fire and E EMS.
or
Mayor?
fire rescue.
You got it. Because now you see, now with that, it's now dated the 350.
But
that
it makes
says-
sense to everybody. I want to
Makes
explain
sense.
language. You know how I get a little policy
Right.
wonk going, so I
No,
want to
you
make sure
got
that
it.
makes sense.
Right.
Okay.
Well, what year was the water plant?
Uh,
built?
The water plant was built in like '06. We put this, the
Yeah, and this was
350
in
was
91.
91. We didn't have a library.
It was 2000. Marshall, it was 2000.
Okay,
Was it
we got
2000 we
enough.
built
Yeah.
the plant? Okay.
Work with Therese, with T if you would, so we can get this stuff done, right?
Well, maybe we,
Let's table
yeah,
this,
go through the rest
To
of
the
the
end of
agenda
the
and come back.
meeting.
table
to
this while they work
Okay.
together,
'Cause by
Yeah.
the end of
and
the
then he'll
day-
come back and we'll table this to the end of new business and we'll
Yeah.
come back to it. Is there a
Perf-
motion to that
perfect.
effect?
Yes,
Nope,
please.
Mayor, I have 2
I'm-
questions.
Yeah, sure.
Please. I find it interesting on 2 points that we had the 350,000 limit established in 1991
Right.
following the home rule business. And then we passed in the town $8 million in bonds in 2000 to generate funds for the water plant. And then the fire department contract, every year it was renewed, including when Glenn negotiated the last one in 2016 to the point we are at now, averaging 5 million a year. How did we get through that, through the 350,000? Was that based upon some kind of a basic management, but we did those without a referendum. The fire contract passed without a referendum, and the water plant passed with one.
So if I
So how do you figure all that?
if I could, I'll go back on the readings that I have from, some from Glenn, some from Mr. Sliney.
Sliney, Tom
Sliney?
Sliney.
Sliney.
Yeah.
And then looking back at our fire operations, those were in place with the county contract prior to 91. I think it was like 80 something. We started with
88.
Palm Beach County, then we started getting upset. May have been
88.
Voorhees. I remember seeing something that was discussing.
Let me enter that. We're getting way off the agenda. I mean, let's ask the two of you to work together and let's move on.
One more question, Mayor.
Is it pertaining to this?
Yes.
Okay.
Do we need to define leasing?
No.
Because the
No.
fire truck was leased, so
No.
that's
No.
not an option here.
No,
Great.
we don't need
Nothing to do
define.
with this.
But I would add maybe even, a comment about when 350 was established in 1991. That's unbelievable.
Yeah, but I
If
don't
if
think,
there's enough words, we could put in the from the 1991 350,
I
or
mean,
the 350
understand
that was established in 1991.
that every word you add is just another area for people to be confused.
I agreed. So we're getting, let's do
So
what you
we're
can there and
kinda
we'll get back.
getting a little unwieldy here.
Okay, it's 3:00. Let's move on.
We had a motion.
I move that we table this until the end of new business.
I second the motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Let's go.
Okay, consent agenda, we have none. Unfinished business, we have none. We're on to new business. A can be found on page 57.
So Mayor,
Well-
may I ask, I'm
No.
back up at item C, 8C.
What do you want?
Can you
Eliminate.
just make a motion to remove ordinance 2021-017 from the agenda since you're not taking any action on
Page
it?
Oh,
51.
yes.
Okay,
Yep,
Page 51.
thank you.
okay, well, yeah, actually, it's page 50. Okay, I move that we remove ordinance number 2021-017 from the agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Done.
Thank you. Now we're on to resolution number 2021-037. Can be found on page 57. Resolution of the Town Commission of the Town of Highland Beach, Florida, declaring the results of the special election held on November 2nd, 2021, providing an effective date and for other purposes. And I have that here. And I can read it to you. The total yes votes were 1321 for 88.7%. Total noes were 168 for 11.28%. Total votes cast were 1,489. It's witnessed by hand seal on the 16th of November and signed off on by Wendy Lusk.
Link.
Link. Wendy
List.
Sartori Link.
Just for your information, the total number of registered voters, 3,830. And we don't care by precinct, do we?
No.
Okay. Do we need a motion to accept this?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I move we accept resolution number 2021-037.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mayor,
Yes.
I want to go on record. I forecasted 90%. So I was off by 1.2%.
Well, the winner was the mayor because I projected 80% and it's closest without going over.
Oh.
No, I said
There you
80,
go.
85 to 90, so. I'm in
Okay, you
there.
got me.
I make the rules.
Again, it's unlawful in the town to gamble on strength and skill of speed and test.
Oh, wait a minute.
Oh, you mean I have to give the money back?
Peggy was 85%. Okay.
When did we become prices right?
Okay. No, John, you were 90%.
I said it.
I
many
attest
times.
to it. Okay, this is going to be an interesting discussion, I think. This is a discussion of the town's future elections of the canvassing board. Going to turn this one over to Linelda for discussion.
Okay, supervisor of election, opposed to the municipalities in Palm Beach County is offering the services of the county canvassing board, which consists of the supervisor of election, county commissioner, and a judge, a county judge. So currently she does the canvassing for the county and the elections, so she's just offering the services to the municipalities. I know a few of the municipalities have choose to use the supervisor of election, county canvassing board, and then some have not. I tried to get a definite number from her this morning, but some are not, and some are. So it's before the commission to kind of discuss and decide if you all want to choose the county canvassing board versus your own canvassing board members. She did state today that in the event that the municipalities, they can maintain their own canvassing board, but if she has like another election going on, she's not available to assist us with our canvassing board because it may be, conflict in schedule, she may not be available. But she did put that out.
Okay.
I have a question. Is there a cost associated with that? Would there be a charge to the municipal?
It's all incorporated with the election cost.
So there's no
there's no
additional,
additional
there's no
cost.
additional cost
No.
for having
No,
them.
there's no additional cost for having the county canvassing board. As the county.
So there's no savings either.
There's
No.
savings.
So you would still be involved, though? This just saves the involvement of one person?
What it does is it eliminates the clerk.
Oh, it does eliminate you.
Yes, it does.
And it eliminates
Yes.
a commissioner.
It will eliminate a commissioner and the clerk from being there. We can go during the process, but we won't, we'll just be sitting like the public.
Okay,
And
now,
we don't have to be there until midnight.
Right.
Correct, correct.
now, last time Natasha was there, obviously, but must it be a commissioner? Could it just be a resident that accompanied you?
It's at the commission discretion if
Okay.
you all revise your charter to that effect.
Oh,
Oh, no.
Some municipalities do have a resident that the commissioners designate. I think Loxahatchee Grove may have a resident. I'm not sure, but I believe they have the clerk, the commissioner, and a resident.
Gotcha. But in our charter, it says clerk and commissioner.
It says clerk or clerk designee, the supervisor of election or designee from their office, and you designate a commissioner.
Okay, Natasha, you obviously were there.
I was
Right.
What do
there.
you see as the benefits of us leaving it the way it is now versus taking her up on her offer?
The benefit of leaving it now is that we're involved. If we didn't have to go, I would have never gone. I don't know that any of us would have ever gone. It forces us to be involved. I feel like I had a really good experience. I really enjoyed looking at the facility. I enjoyed meeting the supervisor of elections. I think the benefit of continuing to do it is we have some involvement and we can see how well, in my experience, how well it went or how poorly it could potentially go. So I think the fact that it forces us to go, I think it's good from that perspective. On the flip side, it was a pain. It's in Riviera Beach. We had to stay there pretty late on election night. You just kind of have to wait around. People do silly stuff. They don't sign their ballot. They try to vote after they're supposed to even register to vote. I mean, people just do silly things. that the supervisor of elections and the people on the board can handle, can totally handle. I mean, it's, you know, looking to see if the signature resembles at all the signature that they have on file. You know, they give you a lot of guidance. If somebody registered to vote after the date that they're supposed to, and it's an illegal vote, I mean, it's an illegal vote. They're very, obviously very qualified, more qualified than someone without any experience to rule on whether or not a ballot is legal or should be counted or not. So, if I weren't involved, I mean, I don't know, you know, if one of our commissioners, you know, I think that would be kind of difficult to stay there until midnight. That is kind of a pain. I didn't mind. I mean, overall, I guess my recommendation is to keep it the way it is so that we are still involved, but it's a slim, it's a slim.
Not even 60/40. huh?
No, I mean, I could really see it either way. The supervisor of elections and the canvassing board, they see the ballots across all the districts, and they really know, they can say, you know, quickly, that signature looks, you know, good, that ballot should be counted. No, that's an illegal ballot. That can't be, you know, and much more, like she had to kind of like explain to me why something should or should not be counted. And I'm like, oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So I'd say leave it the way it is, but it is a pain. And I don't know that it's completely
But
necessary.
you were just observing. You weren't,
I was the
you-
board. I was making the decision.
you were making decisions.
So they put this, you know, the ballots that are in question, the, you know, some
Provincials.
ballots weren't even signed. So, I mean, it's just so obvious. The ballot wasn't even signed. So you cannot accept that ballot. And then they have to reach out to the individual and they have 2 days to.
How do they reach out? They call?
They call, they email, and they mail. And it's up to the voter to respond. And the call that they use is a robocall. So I don't know, you know, how many, you know, they really do that. You know, and then the other one, yeah, and then there was another one that the signature looked similar enough. I mean, it's a judgment call, and I felt like she was very qualified. She was more than qualified to make that call. And plus she sees so many of them. So I would imagine she's handling it all consistently across all the precincts.
Now you were handling only our stuff.
Only ours, Highland Beach, our election. And, you know, there was an accident. So, you know, that was one of the reasons why, like, you're supposed to, the board has to be there until the votes are physically presented at the supervisor of elections building facility. So there was an accident. So you have to wait there until they, you know, which I didn't mind. I mean, it's one night, it's, you know, not that frequent. So I you know, I didn't mind. It was a positive experience for me. As long as I'm involved, I'll probably volunteer to do this.
But you got
But-
overtime. I mean,
Yeah, so just so you know, they have you go, it's several days that you go. So you go a couple of times before the vote because there are mail-in ballots that they want you to see as they come in so that you can take action on them. They don't want you to wait until election night because they're so busy. Then you have to be there election night. And it's after the polls close and you have to be there until the ballots are physically there. So that's late at night. And then, you know, there's some responsibilities. One of us could do the remaining responsibilities. So it wasn't all board members. Some of the responsibilities, all board members have to go. Some of them, just a majority of the board. So when the supervisor of elections serves as one of the board members, she's already one person. And then Linelda went. So that was the majority. So I didn't have to go. But if the supervisor of elections can't go, then yeah, then I would have to go. So
Okay.
Can I just,
Yeah, please.
that like, the reason it came about, I believe the city of Pahokee and South Bay did not show up to canvass their votes on election night. And the supervisor of election took the risk of certifying those votes. But had she got challenged, that could have been a problem. So the canvassing board members must be present on election night.
Okay.
So,
John, anything you want to add?
No, I'm totally, agree. It's valuable. We should be involved. We should continue.
Evelyn?
Linelda, what's the benefits and what's the downsides? I mean, and you're the one who does this on a regular basis. So I think your input is more important.
the benefit is you have a voice at the table.
Right.
The downside is you have to attend the logic and accuracy testing. You have to attend the vote by mail ballot. You have to attend election night, late night. And then you have to attend the post-election audit. So, like Vice Mayor Ward said, there are several dates that board members must. So, not all, but the election night is the main one that all the board members, can board members must. It could be midnight, it could be 2 a.m. in the morning. But you just have to wait it out.
Because having a seat at the table seems to be important to us. So I think for the time being, certainly, we can always change our mind in the future. I would think for the time being, we should leave it the way it is.
And can we nominate the vice mayor to always be the one?
Peg?
Thanks, Mayor. If I could add a few things to help. It so happened that Wendy Sartori Link spoke at a meeting I attended, and I texted Marshall at the
Peggy,
time, said,
just a little louder.
I'm sorry, I've got to learn to be noisy. So Wendy Link attended and spoke to a Daughters of American Revolution, which I'm part of. A week ago yesterday, I texted Marshall, hey, she's here. She said, thank her for her assistance in the election, but she provided some really interesting data, such as Senate bill. And I didn't know this originally was going to be on the, but I brought copies of slides she presented to copy to you all. One is Senate Bill 90, which is going to be enacted shortly, will provide new checkpoints and requests. You cannot just get a mail-in ballot so easily anymore, beginning in 2022. You're going to have to reapply at her office, and you have to provide a Social Security and a driver's license, both in person. And you cannot collect more than 2 ballots, which are not your own mail-ins. And there's many other applications of this, which I will photocopy to you all. So there's these new stopgaps. So I've got this to send to you all, but I'm with the rest of the commission here that, we're a county where we decided the election in the year 2000 and had the hanging chads and had a Netflix movie made. And even when Wendy Link took over, there was ransomware on the election computers. She announced that. It's been publicly noted. So I'm all for having Natasha do her extra service, since soon all kids will be in college and she'll have all this extra time. So I think that would be terrific. I'm all for that. And we can reevaluate down the road if it becomes a problem and we've got these new laws in place we feel like may help us. So I'll leave this for Linelda to copy also.
And I could add one more thing. They also demonstrated for us a new voting equipment that they are going to be implementing next year. And so hopefully that will make it even go more smoothly going forward. So I'm in favor of keeping it the way it is.
I'm all in. I like the idea of having a seat at the table. No question about it. Just, having a set of eyes there and not suggesting that anything would be under the table, but just nice to know. You get more confidence. And thank you for your service. Appreciate it. And speaking of new voting equipment, that becomes the item C. I don't think we have to vote on that, by the way, do we? No, okay. Yeah, we like the involvement. Okay, the next is to approve the mayor to authorize and execute the municipal election voting and processing equipment use and election services agreement with Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections Office for the March 8th election. That can be found on page 83. If anybody has any questions.
Not me. Straightforward.
Anything from you, Ev?
No, I
No.
mean, we have to do this.
Yeah.
We're gonna have an election.
You know, if we
No, there's not.
if we want
much
to move
choice.
forward on this stuff, this is it.
If we don't, then our vice mayor will be standing there for hours.
Okay, Peggy, you got anything on it?
No, sir.
Okay,
Looks good to me.
okay. I guess we need a motion on this one.
Okay. I move that we accept item C under new business.
There a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, the next can be found on page 95. This is the use of the American Rescue dollars. You can see all of the information there. Let me flip over to 95. Len's letter is there as well. Now, we spent a good deal of time talking about this last week. I don't know if there are any further questions or comments on it, but let's run it by everybody if there are. John, do you have any?
Well, again, just to reinforce for those who might be listening, we have approximately $2 million as a result of the American Rescue Act that has landed in our coffers. Now, we just can't spend it on anything. It's stipulated what we can spend it on. And it turns out, fortunately for us, we have a real need for sewer and water. So the question is, can we spend it? Then we go to our legal firm who reviewed it. And by the way, other towns as well have to go through the same routine. And they concluded as a firm, not as an individual lawyer, but as a law firm, that the expenditure of the ARPA funds falls within a category that allows us to spend this money without doing a referendum on just the sewer and water requirements for the town of Highland Beach. It is a no-brainer since we already know we have a problem with our sewer system. We're already contractually focused on solving that. And what we were going to do is have to pay for it out of town funds. Now we don't have to do that. So this is a, clear no-brainer. We need to do this. We need to spend the money, and we need to go forward with our water and sewer expenditure needed to fix it without delay. I think that kind of summarizes the whole point of this. Thank you to the law firm, not to one individual in that law firm, for their legal judgment and the statement of their judgment, and not necessarily, one paragraph. We got the pages here to show there was some thought put into this, some rationale, discussion, and so forth. So again, I think it's absolutely necessary. It's fortunate for the town, and it helps us in immense ways. Thank you very much.
Ev?
Okay. To parrot John, we have to spend this money. Period. If we don't spend it, the federal government takes it back,
Yep. It's not ours.
which would be a shame. We are also very limited in what we can spend it on. It was meant to help recover from the effects of COVID that had on cities. We didn't have a lot of the effects that other places had. So really, we're limited to spending it on water and sewer. We in fact need the money to redo our sewer lines, certainly, because we can't with our spending limits. To me, it's a no-brainer that you do it. But also, this letter to Civia Firm is a legal opinion. That means something in the law, and I feel confident relying on it.
As a lawyer.
Yeah, as a lawyer, but see, there's a difference between somebody just writing a letter and somebody giving you a legal opinion. I know it's in letter form, but there's a distinction. And you can rely on this, whereas over cocktails, you can't rely on the advice that you get. This has, I don't know that I can really define it correctly, but I know that there is a distinction. And I'm good with this.
Peggy?
Thank you, Mayor. I have to remember to talk up. I agree with my fellow commissioners, Shoemaker and David. I actually, you know how I look things up. So I looked up many of the applications of a town receiving funds throughout the state. And it's the same as if we, God willing, we get an appropriation in the coming year. We don't have to give that to referendum. If we get a grant, the fellow who donated or the woman who donated the Tesla, none of that requires a referendum. I don't even know how much a Tesla costs. I don't know if it's over the limit. It's not on my Christmas list. But the other terms, grants, appropriations, endowments, donations, sponsorship, contributions, these do not require a referendum, even if, as we have one. And so we have leaking sewer pipes. We have one in my street that's been leaking for years. I don't know what resident would not want us to take that money and line those sewers and get them right for the next 50 years. I mean, we've been looking at this since before you all came on board. In 2018, we were made aware that, gee, nobody, and Marshall came in. Marshall said, did anyone camera the sewer lines? Nope. So now we're doing it. Now we're repairing it. We have the money. Thank you very much, DC. And I think we need to do it, for heaven's sakes. I don't think it needs a referendum. Thank you.
Natasha?
Yes, I agree with what everyone's said so far, that we should move forward, use the American Rescue Plan Act funds for our sewer project.
Thanks. Doesn't require further discussion, so let's move on. Teresa? Don't need it on here. I don't think we need
I
anything
don't
because
think
we
need
approved
to
it
vote
already.
on that. It's not-
Natasha, you're up.
It's a legal document for file.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. First, we have the meeting minutes to
Right.
review.
Right.
Those are on page 100. Then Teresa's up. Anybody have anything? I have one thing. If we look at page 101. In the underlined section, 1, 2, 3, if we start with the third underlined line, start at the end of it, starts with this person. You with me? This person may become eligible to serve again only after not serving as an elected official in the town for 1 year.
Take the word only.
This is referring to after serving for 3 consecutive elected terms. I think what it should be is after one serves for 3 elected terms, that's 9 years. They can then serve for another 3 years because the 1 year off has to be after 12 years of service. So I think we've got a mistake here. As I understand it, it's, I'm being redundant, but it's 12 years of service.
Mhm.
That's right.
So you serve 3, if John serves 3 or if any of us serve 3, we can, 3 in our current positions, we can then serve another 3 in yet a different position.
Right.
So this is not correct. Pardon me? Well, that's okay. Then it was, the original was not correct then. So we just have to redo that. That's all. Yeah, do we want to, you
Well-
want to pen the change right now?
Do we need the change now, or should we do the change when we're putting together? Because this has to be a referendum to change the charter. So why don't we worry about that when we're actually dealing with the language for this provision?
Okay, so we'll leave it to you, Glenn.
There is conflict between what you adopted and what this says. What you adopted in your ordinance first read is not what this is.
Okay,
It
Ah,
reads, no person shall serve more than 12 consecutive years as a town elected official. If the person serves 12 consecutive years as an elected official as described to per, this person may be eligible to serve again only after 1 year being off, after not serving as an elected official in the town for 1 year. So it says 12 years, then you have to take a break. So it clarifies this piece. So this may have been a copy from an original charter review board discussion piece, but what you adopted addresses your
That's correct.
concern. You have adopted the correct language for in your ordinance, not
Okay.
here. This is incorrect.
okay.
There you go.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Anybody have anything else? Yeah, go ahead.
Just two small corrections and then one rather larger question. On page 103 bottom, Code of Ordinances under Article 4, new section 4.05, Code of Ordinance should be capitalized, the C and the O as just a policy, because it's a specific legal document. Bottom of that paragraph under Article 4.
I have no idea where she is.
Yes, ma'am, just a style problem. But I have a larger question that bounces back to something I brought up earlier, and that is on page 102, section 2.019, fire and rescue, our favorite topic. It references this move we're making towards interlocal agreements. But it kept nagging at me that when we were looking into the fire department in 18 and 19, and we wondered again why I asked earlier, the 016 contract for fire was renegotiated with Delray. There is a 1969 Florida statute about interlocal agreements. Does this conflict and does it matter? That's
but-
my only question.
Peggy, this is just the minutes of a meeting.
I know, but
We're
I,
not debating what.
no, I
went
know
on
it's the
behind it,
minutes, but I don't want to process the minutes into
But-
order
but
if
you
I have
can't
a
change
problem
what
with
was
the
said at the
content.
time.
The minutes are the
The
minutes.
minutes
So
of
I'll
the
bring it
minute.
up later.
Yeah, it doesn't.
It bothers me though. I don't
Well,
understand it.
Then maybe bring it up a different time, but this
Yeah,
is
you're
not
right.
the
You're right.
place to
I
bring it
forgot.
up.
You're right.
Yeah.
So never mind. I'll put that as a bring it up the next time matter.
Yeah, I mean, like she
It's,
said,
it's nagging.
the
It just
minutes are the
isn't making
minutes.
sense.
okay.
Yeah, I got it.
Have anything else, Peg? Anybody? Okay,
yes, no.
need a motion with the change?
I move that we accept the minutes of October 26, 2021 as adjusted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I
Okay, we're now on to the addition of F. Oh, wait a minute, we've got commission special meeting minutes.
Well, that's what.
That's what we just did. So we did both of them.
Yeah, that's what we just did.
So your motion carry both of them?
Well, but it is only one. It's the meeting of commission special meeting minutes. I don't know. that we
There were-
had-
There were two.
There were two.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't make any changes to the other, so I guess we,
So why don't we just make your motion for both?
okay.
Let's adjust that.
Apparently, there were two sets of minutes.
There were, okay,
And we're done.
we're done. It's all yours, Steve.
Good afternoon, Teresa Cuevas, Assistant to the Town Manager. Based on the previous discussions of the commission and our fast timeline to the March election, the manager's office thought it would be a good idea to present a preliminary educational schedule for the upcoming charter recommendations. As we learned with fire rescue, educational campaign is extremely important. And with 5 referendum questions coming to our electorate, it's going to be very important that we're getting the communication out that is clear and concise and consistent. So based on the discussions of the commission, there are 5 proposed charter recommendations. The first being the commissioner's salaries. Second, the commissioner's term limits. Third, the spending limit. Fourth, the change of control, which is specific to the fire department, police department, and water plant. And the 5th, the payment of lawful debts. So during the fire rescue campaign, we learned that email and direct mail campaigns were a big success. So to carry that message forward, we decided that an email and direct mail campaign would be perfect for getting the message out for the 5 referendum questions. So here we put together a preliminary schedule meeting the first email direct mail campaign will kind of introduce the voters to the 5 questions that will be coming up, telling a story, kind of going through the email and direct mail campaigns. We will target to have the first email and direct mail campaigns out the week of January 3rd, leaning towards having the email campaigns coming out in the earlier part of the week with the direct mail pieces coming towards the later part of the week, so that if we don't have someone that's captured on the email campaign, they are getting that direct mail piece. Second piece will focus on the salary, commissioner salaries, the commissioner's term limits, as well as the payment of lawful debts. And the email campaign and the direct mail campaign will go out the week of January 17th, breaking about every other week to put out communications on each topic. The third, the spending limit. I think that's going to be a huge topic and require a lot of information to the voter. So we dedicated the 3rd campaign solely to the spending limit. That's targeted for the week of January 31st. The 4th campaign will be the change of control for the fire department, police department, and water, as well as hitting the topic of the spending limit again. And that will be the week of February 14th. The 5th email and direct mail campaign will be a summary, a general informational piece, summarizing all of the topics that have gone through in the previous email and direct mail campaigns. And we'll target that for the week of February 28th. And then at the end of the week on February 28th, the mayor's letter that he put out with the summary for the fire rescue, that was a big success. So we thought that adding that as a direct mail piece towards the end, closer to Election Day, would be successful. And everyone loved the food trucks, so we might as well bring them back again. It was a great point to bring the community together, have the commissioners and town staff mingle with the residents, also adding in that conversation of the referendum questions, allowing time to answer any questions that residents may have. So we propose to have 2 food truck events on January 13th and February 10th, as well as have another coffee with the mayor on February 17th. And that will be later towards the end of February, so that if any residents have any questions, they can bring them to the coffee with the mayor and have those questions answered during that event. We'll also create a page on the website, as we did for fire rescue, with a revolution slider on the main page, so that when they do visit the main highlandbeach.us webpage, they'll just click a button and it'll take them right to the page with all the information on the referendum questions. And to build the schedule, I just put in there the Palm Beach County Supervisor of Election key dates. That kind of drove the schedule for the email and direct mail campaigns. So we want to make sure that we're hitting the voters on those deadline dates. So the deadline to register to vote is February 7th. We made sure that we got an email and direct mail campaign piece out during that week. The date the mail-in ballots will be mailed are about 45 days from the election. So that's about January 17th. So we'll make sure that there'll be an email campaign as well as a direct mail piece that is received when the residents get their mail-in ballots. Because as we know, normally when they receive them, they fill them out right then. So to have that information fresh on their head when they receive their mail-in ballots is ideal. And then the deadline to request the mail-in ballots is February 26th. So we make sure that in the communications up to that date, we let them know that they need to request their mail-in ballots. We'll put the number to the supervisor of election on the direct mail piece, as well as have a link directly in the email to the supervisor of elections page. So the next steps over the next 4 or 5 weeks, we'll finalize the schedule, the content and the narrative to include on the email and direct mail campaigns, as well as the website materials. Engage Pace Marketing to assist with the creation of the creative materials so that we're having a succinct message that's going out to the residents. And begin creating those deliverables to be on target for the first week of January. So that is really the end of the preliminary schedule. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
John?
The only thought comes to my mind, while you're doing this, I was looking at the website. How are we using the website in support of all this?
So we'll have a page as we did for fire rescue that will include all of the information. There'll be a sample ballot on there, the notice of election. It'll have a link directly to the Palm Beach County Supervisor of Elections page. And then when you go on the main page, how we have that revolution slider that's on the front page, there'll be a slider there so that when you see it, you click on it and it'll take you to all that information.
And everywhere where we have a chance, we should put our links.
Absolutely.
Live links, okay.
We'll also send a copy of these. So everybody has a copy of this preliminary schedule.
I like it. I think it's getting the message out, and I mean, I really like the idea of having the mayor send out a letter at the end, because the mailers are great and a lot of people look at them, but a lot of people don't look at those mailers as well. But they will open up a letter and read it. And yeah, we have to let people know exactly what they're voting on, or it's a problem. So thank you, Teresa.
Welcome.
Thanks, Mayor. Maybe we should change coffee with the mayor to wine with the mayor and make it at 5:30. Because when we have the morning meetings, working persons cannot attend. And I know when I ran and when Evelyn ran, we discussed having evening meetings. So I'm just throwing it out there. If not now, at a future date, we have an evening meeting. We've never done one since about 2016.
I'll
Just an
tell you,
idea.
I think that's a wonderful idea. However,
Not really wine, I'm just joking.
No,
but
well,
hors
yeah,
d'oeuvres and
no
pop or
problem with
whatever you
wine.
want. Yes,
um,
ma'am.
no, I think wine's a great idea.
Okay,
You know,
wine.
Beer
then.
and wine, whatever.
Little straws. Crackers and cheese.
Our building is kind of a microcosm of the town. And we have tried different times for board meetings and whatnot. And mornings, people complain that they're out for doctor's appointments or a handful work. Or that's their time in the gym and in the fitness room, blah, blah, blah. So that wasn't good. Then we had evening meetings, 7:00 meetings. Oh, that's no good because I'm out having dinner. So we settled in on 4:00 to go back to your point. That seems to be the best time. So, maybe down the road, we try one. See what happens. If we don't get a turnout, we can go back to the coffee thing. But, wine and cheese with the mayor is a great idea.
And Chief Hartman can be checking IDs.
Yeah. No, I think it's a marvelous thought. We ought to give it a go. If we start doing too late, then a lot of people eat early. People with kids eat early, so we got to be careful of being it too late. Yeah. Okay.
Teresa, can you go back to the your timeline as to when things are? Yeah. So I just want to point out the results of the latest vote. 60% of the people who cast a vote were vote by mail. And we had the least favorable results in the vote by mail. I mean, it was still a landslide, but
No, you're right.
it
You're
was
absolutely right.
15% that voted no, whereas on election day, 40% of the people who voted, and it was a 5% vote yes. So I guess I would like us to add, and I think the 3 and 4 are probably the most important. And what I find is you got to be repetitive. And I don't think we need to worry about being repetitive. So I would duplicate 3 and 4. So the mail ballots go out in the mail the 17th. Like, when do we think people actually get them in the mail?
The supervisor of elections targets for the week of the 17th. I want to say this time around, the mail-in ballots were received probably within 3 or 4 days of that mail drop.
So maybe add between 2 and 3 another, maybe similar to number 4 or some, both the fire department and the spending limit, a 2.5, the 20th or the 21st.
We can do a whole new creative also. Doesn't have to be that.
Okay,
again.
whatever. I want to target those people, the vote by mail people, and I want them to receive the message ideally right when they open up the ballot. And I don't know how you time that, except for maybe do it like a day before.
We can identify those people. We know who they are.
Oh, target that, because whatever the best way to do
Sure.
that. Even I think when was the coffee or with the mayor to be scheduled? Oh, the week of the 17th. Okay.
And we can change that date also.
Or just right before they get that.
It was February 17th.
Oh, okay. So
February.
then I would move that up, because we have the food truck events, which we will be conveying the message. And that takes care of the evening. So perhaps the
Okay.
mayor
I-
discussion.
I'm totally with you. Here's the however. There will be more population here for March than there were here for this election, because the Northerners will be coming down where they were up north then. That might sway a little bit of the vote. So let us take a look at what the mail-in is in March, because we have all that data. We can look back. So let's see what the percentages are then also.
I mean, I think regardless of what it is, there's still a material number of people who vote by mail. And I think we
100%.
need to specifically target them. I think the outreach that's done is effective, as you can see from the election day results versus the vote by mail results. So I think moving up, changing the date of the mayor meeting, the breakfast or whatever we're calling it.
Whatever. And we can also
I
bump
think
up,
I think
we can bump up the emails specifically to those that have voted by mail in the past.
yeah,
Like we can basically look at two separate segments
Right.
if we wanted to.
right.
It's hard to, we got to cross-reference those and then ID those against the new list. So we got to get I have the old list actually.
I have
from
the old
yours.
list.
I don't think it hurts to just do it in both,
That was 3 years.
be repetitive. I
Yeah, so
really
I
don't.
will have to buy
Last
the
thing.
old list if we don't
Last
have it.
thing.
Well, you have it probably.
We have
You
the old
have it.
list.
Yeah, you've
Mhm.
got it. Okay. Yep, you got it.
Mhm. We have it.
It's like $12.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to be repetitive.
Yeah. Well, the
it's,
problem is if you're too much, you're paying the
Right.
neck already and
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
doesn't work.
yeah, I think just one more,
I'm with you.
right before they get, the day before they get the ballot in the mail. I
But
just think that they're making their decision up before they,
No, the
get
key is
here.
the majority, once they get the ballot, they open it, they fill it out, it's done.
Right.
So
So you want to catch those.
You've got like 2
Right.
days there.
Right.
You're
so to
right.
Time it
Yeah, we learned that.
with that.
I agree. Good point.
So, okay, but also perhaps we should have something that really gets out the message that if people want to vote by mail, they're going to have to reapply.
reapply.
You said that if they want to vote by mail, they have to reapply.
No, I-
No, that's next year.
Oh, after this, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll copy you on those.
Yeah.
It's been one more cycle.
Yeah, it's a real, unfortunately, December is a waste. People are into the holidays, blah, blah, blah. So it's really very condensed. We got 2 months to communicate it all.
But January, people are ready to go.
They get wound up
I
again.
think so. I think it'll be all
Yeah.
right. I think the food truck events and all that will be good.
Yep.
That's it.
Just to add, I took notes when Mrs. Link was speaking to us, and she did say they had issues with the US Postal Department
Oh, it's terrible,
and
terrible.
beyond what people might imagine. So I want to just lay that out there. I didn't know. I've never heard her speak before. So we need to
Well,
keep that
what-
in mind.
What some of the mail houses do, I know the one that we used. She will actually go to the post office and hand deliver it to the delivery people for each of the segments. So she knows it's on the truck. So I'm assuming that the other mail houses do the same, because you want it delivered the day before or 2 days before the actual ballots are supposed to be delivered. But they end up getting delivered, over a 2-3 day period. That's about the best you can do today. Apparently, it used to be you can make sure that they're delivered the same day the ballots are delivered. But the reliability is shot now.
Would it help to check our post office? Because about 2 years ago, I went to Marshall because our mail lady had reported that our stacks of certified letters were sitting in Boca Raton down off Military Trail,
That's where it goes
like
through.
6 feet
Our-
tall.
Our post
unclaimed.
office
And
can't help that.
so would it
It's
help to
Boca.
do that or no? Just wondering. No. okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Yep.
You guys sorted it out at the time, but I just wondered if ballots were the same.
Okay, thank you. On to you, Peg, now on meeting procedures.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Yes, it just came to my attention. Yes, if you look at the video, on our special meeting last week, you called a adjournment, a recess, whatever, but the
It was
cameras,
a
went-
recess, not
yeah,
an
recess.
adjournment.
but the cameras went dark and it stayed dark. And I wasn't aware that a lot of our meetings, if we happen to have a long meeting, the cameras go dark. And it bothered me because it appears to be not transparent. So I wondered if we could, going forward, looking it up, I did look up a meeting on video with audio is considered a public record. And once it starts, it's a public record, just like the minutes. So I wondered, I went back a few times, even before this commission, and it goes dark. And I think it might be a better practice for everyone to keep the video and audio on. And, just as we go about taking a break for a coffee or whatever. And so that it's transparent, because I just think we're all doing the right things. I don't have any doubts that anyone's really doing anything unacceptable, but it's the appearance. And I don't know of other towns who do that.
I'm confused. Are you saying when we took the break, it
Yes.
goes dark and then
Yes.
it turns back on?
Yes.
And you don't like the dark period?
I don't know if it's lawful. I'm not an attorney. It appears not transparent and it appears questionable. And I think we're all doing a great job in general. And I would just like to keep the video, audio on, and, our mics are off if we have to run to the ladies' room or whatever. But I would appreciate doing that. I think it's a better public face to put on.
What we could do to solve maybe some of that is we could work with our IT person. We could put something that says in recess and it comes over the screen. So you see everything. You just turn your mics off. There's no audio. And then it just says you're in recess. So people don't feel that it ended and it's over, that it's still continuing, but we're on break. We can just have just a little graphic that comes up and says
Okay.
in recess, and they could see us moving about and shuttling about and stuff.
I think that's
But
very
I
That
think
works.
a
Okay.
That
a
works.
disclaimer also stating that we are not, as Commissioner Shoemaker stated that day, we are not conducting any unlawful activities or discussions or sidebars. That we really need to be fully forthright. We have the people's attention, and I just like to have that. If we could have a
Yeah.
legal disclaimer, it would be great.
That's good. I think that's a good idea.
Okay with me. Who are you? No, seriously, go up here and
Address.
introduce yourself, please.
Rich Pollock with the Coastal Star. I think it's really important that we know what's going on. Commissioner Shoemaker, I'm going to quote Ronald Reagan, trust but verify.
Absolutely.
We needed to see what was going on. So I think it's a really good idea to do that
Yep.
from a perspective of a newspaper reporter.
Good.
Yeah. no,
I'm suggesting
good.
we not go dark at all. I'm
Yeah.
suggesting just leave it on.
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it's a good
cool.
idea.
And-
Thank you so much.
Great idea.
But they may have a question as, well, wait a minute, they're just walking around, what are they doing? And
That's
your
okay.
comment About putting
Yeah.
there
In
in
recess.
recess.
Great idea.
That's good.
No
Just turn
business,
off the video.
no
That's
business
the
being
audio.
conducted in recess.
Yeah. turn
And
off
the
audio.
reason, Mayor, if I could reiterate, we are trying so hard to fix anything in this town that was not taken care of in the last however many, plug in your number of years. And I don't want anyone who has any kind of a nag with us
Yeah, we're in
to say you
agreement.
guys screwed up. Thank you.
No,
Thanks so
to-
much.
Totally valid. I'm glad you brought it up. Thank you.
Is there a bomb going on?
Okay, we are now on to comments. Oh, what are we going back to? Oh, that's right. You got the,
So
you got the,
we were
figured
trying,
out?
so let's make sure we fully,
Captured.
you came up with some other ones. Okay, I was just a little concerned. It was a very wordy and lengthy that could be construed contrary to it. So sometimes simplicity carries, use the education and the whereas clauses to tell the story. But, you know, if you got some,
I'm with you.
but
Just,
go
I
ahead.
just tweaked them a little bit, but we worked on. So as
is this the pot and the kettle? Is that what
Yes,
we got going on here?
Exactly. As Marshall did the lead in, I think it's obviously up to the commission, but I think both of us think it might be better to use more whereas clauses and explain it more and keep the language a little tighter. And so here's a stab at it. So if you're on your page 46, and we got to go back. Okay, so after the sixth whereas clause, after you say section 166.031, right underneath that, add these three other new whereas clauses. Whereas in 1991, the town established a $350,000 spending limit. And whereas said spending limit is outdated and inadequate to efficiently operate the town. And whereas an increase in the funding limit is necessary to properly support the delivery of high-quality police, fire, rescue, library, water, and other services for the citizens of the town. So those are the three whereas clause options if you like or dislike the concept or any one of those three.
I like the concept.
I like the concept too, because I originally felt we were leaving out the important explanation in the whereases.
And you're
That
right. And then,
supports.
and then as we looked at it, it was, that's not just one new whereas clause, it's really
Yeah.
three.
Yeah,
Because
it's
you're
three.
setting the stage with 1991 is then
Totally agree.
2 is outdated, and 3 to all of yours comments that high quality services, police, fire, water, library. Then the body of the language, as Marshall and I were talking about, maybe that's back to a more simplistic, straightforward. Gotta find the right page here. Here we go. So it's page 47 at the bottom. Shall the town of Highland Beach amend its charter or section 2.0130 to provide that the funding limits be increased from the 1991 limit of $350,000 to 5% of the town's total annual budget?
Perfect.
Want me to read that one more time?
I like it.
Shall the town of Highland Beach amend its charter at section 2.0130 to provide that the funding limits be increased from the 1991 limit of $350,000 to 5% of the town's total annual budget?
Nailed it. As far as I'm concerned.
And then the finale, the grand finale, is the actual charter language, which we already discussed. So this part's anticlimactic. It's page 48. Funding limitation, any single project, take out the words accumulation of projects, So any single project or extension of town services requiring allocation of more than 5% of the town's combined operating enterprise fund budgets, parens, total annual budget, close parens, in any given fiscal year, and then continue on. So you tie back that total annual budget to a definition in the legislation, and then you use the simple total annual in the language.
Start it
Took out the
again.
Accumulation.
You took that out.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Okay, now let's go back to the language of the question that will be on the ballot. It's simply as you read, shall the town of Highland Beach amend its charter?
Because you've already included it in the whereases, the background that we talked about before.
Yeah, but
We played
the
with the
whereases,
support language.
but the whereases don't show up on the ballot. They
Correct.
do not show up on the ballot.
That's correct, yeah.
Therefore, somebody walking in cold, because why should we be increasing this? It's a lovely town.
Well, that's the other alternative that we talked about. Do we put more? And we had many drafts that we did over there of trying to put in.
Yeah, you see,
Which we could do.
I'm not happy with that.
Not really.
I mean, we just saw a nice campaign we're going to do. Yeah. But we're not going to reach everybody
Yeah, but do you
and
think,
not everybody's going to
so
remember
you
it.
think that people will walk into this cold not having any idea?
Yeah, I guarantee it.
Well, I'll have to say one thing, if they can't sign or find a way to sign their ballot, I guess you're right.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I used to spend millions of dollars on marketing and people didn't know it all.
So
I-
we have an alternative.
Okay, because I give you a very simple example and you're all going to say, yeah, you're right. Here we go. In our little building, I write a column that goes into our newsletter. Their newsletter is one page, one side. And my little newsletter is one half of that. And I get questions during the month on things that I wrote in that newsletter. It gets emailed to everybody. It gets posted in the mailroom and it sits on the concierge desk with copies. Therefore, I guarantee you, people are going to walk in and vote and have no idea about any of this.
Well, we're back.
And those that don't know all of it, it's a reinforcement.
Mayor,
Yes,
are we saying combined operating and enterprise fund budgets? Because I don't think people understand it.
No.
We're taking
no,
that
we're
out
leaving all
still.
that out.
Okay, that's what I'm just double
It's just, we're
checking.
just saying one total budget.
That's what I thought. That was unclear.
So let me hear your other
So the
idea.
Alternative
Could you repeat
language,
it?
if you liked all the whereas clauses,
Yeah,
I think the
let's hear
whereas clauses are
plan
good.
B.
Could you,
I think the legislation part is good, the ballot language. So that would start with, to support the operation of the fire rescue department, a library, the water treatment plant, police, and other town services. And then you pick up with the language, shall the town of Highland Beach amend its charter at section 2.0130 to provide that the funding limits be increased. And
And
the
that's what-
1991 limits of 350 to 5% of the town's total annual budget.
That solves your question or your concern.
So we wanted to give you both options.
Thank you. No, I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Okay, you convinced me. Second option.
I mean, I usually don't like things that are wordy, but I don't know that we have any choice here.
Can you read the second option again?
yeah, please.
Read that second.
Yeah.
Okay, one more time. I'll go a little slow. To support the operation of the fire rescue department, comma, the library, comma, the water treatment plant, comma, police and other town services. Then you pick up with the language that's here. Shall the town of Highland Beach amend its charter as section 2.0130 to provide that the funding limits be increased from the 1991 limit of $350,000 to 5% of the town's total annual. budget.
81 or 91?
91.
Yeah, okay.
I would not say fire rescue first. I would put it someplace in the middle. I don't want people to think that, we hosed them or anything here that, oh, they got us to vote for fire rescue and now they're raising everything. I don't want any
So
negative.
do we lead with library?
Lead with, no, water.
Yeah,
Water,
library, water.
I would put fire rescue last, to be honest,
I agree with that. Fine.
All right, so,
and other services.
I
so
agree.
start
Fine.
with Water.
Fine.
Water and then library. Because
So one
they were
water,
established,
2 library, 3
Sewer.
police,
water and sewer,
water and sewer.
No.
water and sewer. Yeah.
Don't put
Water.
sewer in, that's smelly.
Don't put sewer.
Okay, all right, all right.
Water treatment, okay. To support the operation of 1 water treatment plant, 2 library, 3 police, 4 fire rescue, and 5th other town services. So that's the order. All right, one more time, so Linella's got it for the record. So the ballot language will read, to support the operation of the water treatment plant, library, police, fire rescue, and other town services, shall the town of Highland Beach amend its charter at section 2.0130 to provide that the funding limits be increased from the 1991 limit of $350,000 to 5% of the town's total annual budget.
Now, does that exceed the word count?
I haven't counted them yet, but I think we're in. I'll count, now that I know what it is, I'll quick count, but I think
And do you
we're,
have to put in the section number 2, I mean, is that necessary?
Yeah, you're referencing the number you're changing.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're gonna be fine on the words. I'll do a quick count here.
Now, Marshall, you've done many, many, many of these.
It's a tough one. I'm gonna be honest, it's tough, you know. But if you guys are comfortable with it, and the reason why I'm saying that is you talk to more of the residents, you see them in your buildings, you see them walking down the street. Does that read well? And that's I think as the 2 attorneys in the room, like how we're moving to this plain English, I have very other words that you guys would be like, oh, it's just Marshall talking again, blah, 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 you know, that kind of public administration talk that would round over where you would, you know, operation, are you looking more at capital expenditures? I mean, is it really to support the capital expenditures related to? Because it's not really operation, because you can handle the personnel and stuff outside of the charter fine. Is it a capital expenditure that we're looking at that's over the 350,000? That's what it's going to be. It's always going to be a capital expenditure, but people look at you and be like, what are you, capital?
They don't know what that.
Yeah, that's what I'm
No.
saying. Like, to me, that just says, oh, I know exactly
No,
what that is.
I
But
guess what I'm asking you is the wordy one or the short and simple one?
I prefer the short and simple ones and hit them with the education. However, you do make a very good point. And you all have agreed to that. You're going to get people coming in cold to it.
If that's true.
And then
That's
if,
the key.
and if they are coming in cold, I like a little more language, but I thought the 1991, hopefully getting them to say, geez, we haven't changed this since 91.
That's unbelievable.
Because we had some other language over there where I would suggest, that, it's kind of an outdated number, or to recognize the growth of costs related or the cost of service provision. And you're like, oh, service. Then, that stuff gets.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, but to answer your question, at least from my perspective, why not be safe and go with a few more words? And with the few more words, Lynella, you listening? I'm going to go on the record. I'm going to say 80%. Will approve.
Put it in the minutes.
But I mean, if you, again, if we truly believe that a lot of people are going to come in cold and just read this cold, stay with the more words. I would agree that probably will get there. But generally, you want to keep it shorter and simple because it gets confusing, but you're just adding context, I guess, at this point, saying all of the services that we provide. Maybe people don't know the services they have. If they're that cold, they might not know we have a water treatment plant. All right. They just think water shows up. They don't know that we have a
Yeah.
reverse osmosis system and
They don't
a
see
treatment
the-
train costs $400,000. I can't even buy, if we lose one, I got to go to a referendum and special election to replace parts in
They
a
don't
reverse
know.
osmosis.
They
plant.
have no idea.
Yeah.
No, it's those damn rain barrels,
I like how Marshall put it too, though, to recognize the growth and costs of the library or the water, the library. I don't know if that exceeds our words.
We still got about a dozen words to play with.
Oh, good.
I kind of like to recognize the growth and costs.
Recognize the growth of costs.
Yeah, I think that's important.
I agree with Commissioner Moore.
Too much?
You said recognize the
Okay,
growth
I'm-
of cost
I'm satisfied.
Yeah, right,
Cost?
'cause that's really what.
and use the word support too or no support.
To support and to recognize the growth of costs and to support.
Okay, so here's the latest version.
But you just added that.
Because I like the conversation, operation capital services, so next version. To recognize the growth of cost and to support the delivery of town services,
Let's stay
including
with what we got.
like delivery of town services
No, I like that.
instead of operation. So the delivery of town services, including water treatment plant, library, police, fire rescue, and other town services.
Good. Okay, is today our deadline?
Yeah, what's our,
Well, I was talking to Glenn, you might be able to, at a second read, I don't know, you want to be gutting the ballot language.
No,
At the
no, I
second
mean,
read.
tweaking a word or two at that point, but.
A couple of one or two words, so long as it stays generally
And our
informed.
second read is when?
December 7th, because we had to advertise for the second read.
Okay, would you send this around? Clean it up, send it to all of us. If anybody's unhappy with anything or has a better idea, send it back to Marshall. That way we have a chance to live with it a little bit.
If there is a groundswell of support for significant changes, I can't believe I'm going to say this, I suggest you call a special meeting next week to have first reading again.
Okay.
If you all
I
get. Marshall
don't
that
think there's
feedback,
going to
he
be
sees-
anything significant, but if it is, we have that option.
I know
Because
it's
that's the only
Thanksgiving
way
week.
we can get together as a group to talk.
can you read it again? Sorry. I
Read
know,
it
I'm
again.
looking.
Okay.
Can you read it again? I mean, I think it's
Sure.
worthwhile. Just go ahead.
Sure. I want to try and count the words as I'm going to, but I'm going to do that. Because we had about 58 words before, so I don't think we added that many words. To recognize the growth of cost and to support the delivery of town services, including the water treatment plant, library, police, fire rescue, and other town services? Or do we not need another town services, or say including
And others.
And
Forget services.
and other services?
No, don't say services. You've already said it earlier, right?
And associated capital needs.
No,
You got it.
just, but you've already mentioned it in the beginning of the sentence.
Right. And I'm not sure I need the other town service at the end because I've already said to support the delivery of town service, including,
Blah, blah, blah.
I'm
and
not
that's
right.
it.
So,
why don't we do this? Have somebody type it up, make some copies, and while we go through remarks, they can get that done, and then we can look at it, each of us, before we leave.
At what point are you putting 1991? Like,
Okay.
where does 1991
Would you help
go?
me?
a couple of places in
It's going before 350,000 in your original.
the ballot summary on page 47. Where it
Shall
says
be increased from 350,000,
So
oh,
right before
established in
350, say,
1991.
T is
Increase from
typing
the
it up, and
1991
Oh, so
we'll-
am I.
limit.
we'll-
Yeah,
okay.
I'm getting like 60 words.
Yeah, but what he's doing is he's adding to the beginning of it. It starts and shall the town.
Yep, me too.
That We're leaving the way it is, except we're putting total budget
Hmm.
instead of
Yep.
combined.
Yeah, I'm getting,
And so then he's adding the
We have 75
We have 75,
to
yeah.
play with. And I always say 73 because yes and no, and some arguments count. So
yeah, I get like 60 words.
yeah, I think we're good. So do you want Keisha to go back and get this typed up, distribute it? All right.
John, comments?
Comments. I have comments. I'm glad the chief is here. And for the audience, again, I want to speak to the fact that unfortunately, no, I'm going to strike that word. Fortunately, we have a commission that I believe is working well for the interests of the town. However, we have, unfortunately, a negative force that is only relentlessly focused on the possible downside of any action or discussion that we have, with or without facts. So I'm going to just reinforce that come to the town meeting, hear what we're saying if you're not watching on TV or the recordings after the fact. We need balance. We need criticism for sure. But we also want to move in a positive direction without necessarily getting this relentless criticism with no benefit. All right, so I've had to say that just for my own peace of mind, because it is depressing, it's somewhat deceptive, and frankly, it concerns me about attracting talent to town management. Secondly, I'd like to say that in the gas leak that we had, very unfortunate situation where a main line was punctured and a gas cloud appeared. And then, of course, the police and fire, EMS, they had to block both ends of A1A to all traffic. And they had to have some distance, obviously, between the vehicles and the actual gas leak. Well, here's what I've learned. Officers of the Highland Beach Police Department were instructed to obviously close the road and to turn around vehicles, that they couldn't allow them to run over fire hoses and other apparatus. I mean, it's unbelievable that many, too many, and I got this straight from the mouth of those who had to stand there and take the punishment, where people say, I don't care. My condo's right over there. I need to get home. In one case, there it is, a gas cloud. The police officer's telling him, you can't go forward. He's taking all kinds of invective coming at him and retaining his patience and tolerance, by the way. And then at the same time, the guy's smoking a cigarette. I mean, honestly, you would think this is more than just outrageous, and it's ridiculous, and I shouldn't even say this. I mean, it's amazing to me. But I am trying to reach up to a higher level that says, if you think that the police don't take invective and insult and disrespect at times from our own residents, as well as residents who are just passing through, right? They're just using this as a shortcut. And unfortunately, we saw that is not the case. So I will say to the chief and to the police force that it's unfortunate. We will not support that kind of disrespect. And I think you guys did an outstanding job. Now, I have another subject that says, unfortunately, one of the condominiums had a serious incident with a drunken driver who took the same attitude towards the guard at the front entrance to the condominium and blasted through the gate, tearing the gate open, ripping off the arms that hold the gate and open it, ripping off her own rear view side mirrors on the outside of the vehicle. Is a mess. And then driving erratically into a parking spot that wasn't even hers. In any event, the town manager and the guard tried to call the police. They called the wrong number. They called the admin number. So here I'm going to say to all of you, if you need the police and it's an emergency, call 911. If you call the administration number, that's fine. You can get through the administration of the police department. But if that doesn't work for you, you could call 911 and then you will be given instructions on how to handle the call from there, whether it's to call another number or that she will dispatch police in an emergency or whatever. But clearly we don't want to have a delay in responding to an important event. And I think the chief has already responded very quickly to address this, and we'll work on other fixes in the future so that when somebody makes the mistake, it'll get switched over. A suggestion for the election. When we were doing election duty, we were on duty as commissioners. The one additional suggestion would be that we had the tent, we had a couple chairs and a table, that we should also have a banner that says this is Highland Beach Commission or something with our logo. So because some people didn't know who we were until, hey, how you doing? You know, welcome. I'm glad you're coming to vote. You know, I'm doing only because, well, who the heck are you? So my suggestion is that we have a sign or something like that. And knowing that we're 100 feet away from the voting booth and all that, that's not a problem. And so we need that for the future. Okay, lastly, I will make a side note. I still can't get over the fact that people don't sign ballots. In this day and age, how can you possibly go through the motion of collecting, filling it out and not signing the ballot? Okay, last point. Klondike Playboy.
It's a good read.
I had a great opportunity to interview John Bowden. You're going to be able to read about it as I just finished and submitted the article on John Bowden. Klondike Playboy, a Vietnam Marine aviator who is a playboy, but not the kind that you think. And that will be in the story that you will read. But I want to, again, reach out that the veterans in this town, I'm getting around to you as fast as I can, and you have incredible stories. Thanks very much. By the way, this is in the town library. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna follow John a little bit by saying that we welcome constructive criticism. If there is something you think we should handle in a better way, that's fine. But it should be civil and polite. It should not be nasty and derogative, because that is never helpful. Other than that, I think we've said enough.
Okay. Peg?
Yes, thanks. I'm just providing a couple minutes of that legislative session that I said I'd follow up on. These are the priorities of the statewide commissioners and legislators to present to legislators. Short-term rentals is back. The powers that be at Tallahassee are hoping to undo some of the local governance of short-term rentals. It's just a mildly undercurrent continuing process, looking to perhaps remove the grandfathered clauses such as ours enacted in 18 that provides us to have some jurisdiction over short terms. And they're looking to undermine some of those municipal powers in order to promote the state tourism and use of short-term rentals. Interestingly enough, the standard hotel chains are also fighting that because they're losing business. So we'll see what happens. Communications services tax reform. Apparently it's applied inequitably throughout the state, the utilities taxes, and they're looking at having a better base for the applications and taxes. In other words, people in the rural areas harder to reach may be paying more than people in the cities and so forth. They're looking into this, but it should be equitable. Tree protection. There's standards and loopholes in different municipalities that allow clear cutting of lots and developments and just taking out all native vegetation, all these protected species possibly, without really oversight by the state. And the state and the legislators are looking themselves at trying to stop this clear cutting of our lands that remain, the pristine native lands, including individual lots in towns, even Highland Beach, which might have an indigenous, lovely 80-year-old tree, which they can just come in and chop out. So that's a cool thing. I'm keep you updated on that. Transportation funding, they're still looking at publicly available electronic vehicle charging stations. How this will work, we remain to see. It just keeps taking a back seat because it's just not, there's just not support, and also it undermines the gas tax. There's no tax on these. So the state could and will lose revenues the more commonplace they are without enacting their own EV station taxes. Lastly, economic development incentives. The legislators are going to be asked for increased funding, technical assistance, and increased collaboration between the state and cities to offer opportunities for building sustainable economic resiliency and funding, which would not be subject to referendum. We'll see on that too. Thank you. I'll copy this to everyone.
I guess I was curious, like when we'll get an updated revenue projection for the water bills.
Oh, yeah.
The water bills, and the water and sewer, the revenues for the water and sewer since we implemented the rate increase. We got one a couple of bill cycles ago.
Well, we have some of the raw data. We can get that to you. Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I mean, I guess I was suggesting if we could get maybe another update for the December meeting, because then you'll have the next set of bills, I think, by
Because
then.
that's when the Raftalis will commence their update, that we executed a contract with them to take all that. We were going to take the December billing data. But we just in finance department, we just recognized all of the billing revenue to move it back and migrate into the closed booked finance year. So we should be able to get that to you real quick.
Okay. And then when
guess.
do we get the final numbers on like what was transferred or taken from the unassigned? When do we get that? I thought it
So
was-
probably maybe a week or two. We're moving. I mean, I can give you an update now, but about a week or two. We're way ahead of schedule with our new setup with David from GSG. So, we should be ready for audit in about 3 weeks. So we'll have a lot of clean data to give you some preliminary unaudited numbers that usually you didn't get till July. We'll be able to get to you in December. So we're well ahead of schedule. So we're going to get you those numbers so you can see how we closed out the
Right.
September 30, the 21 fiscal year. How did we close out? We can give you some general ideas. Auditors always tweak it a little bit, but you'll get a general idea. We, again, probably underspent lesser expenditures than revenues and added some. I just got to get a better handle on what that number is.
Okay. And then when do you share the updated project plan for the fire rescue?
When I can, probably need a couple days. I got a couple tweaks I need to make, but it's pretty close
Okay.
with the colors. So, no,
Love the colors.
we should have it. And you'll see that a lot of the stuff we're now into phase 2, but as we've recognized some of our, I'm going to say successes, because I think we're doing a marvelous job, to be honest with you. Some of the timelines that we initially thought were more eminent aren't as critical. Like we were like, oh my God, we have to have a fire chief, right? Maybe we can
Not
pump
so
the
much.
brakes a bit because our consultants that we selected are doing such a great job that we've bought some time and we're ahead of schedule. I'll probably make sure I get it to you because I believe it's on the 7th. Is it the 7th or the second meeting in December? We were going to bring in the EMS presentation. What kind of vehicle, type 1 to type 3, where you guys are comfortable with, authorize us to move forward with specifying a specific vehicle to serve as our new model for EMS vehicles. So I can get it to you guys ahead of time for sure.
Okay. And I just want to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. I don't think we're going to meet again before the holiday. So I'm thankful
Thank
for
you.
each of you and all that you contribute to our town. So
Yay. Thank you.
Thank you. Very nice.
I had one thing. I had the banner. Thank you for the banner for sure. I'll cross that off my list. When is the next financial advisory board meeting? Is it coming up like in the next couple of months?
January.
Oh, great. I would like to task them to looking into doing an analysis on reserves, like their recommendation on where they think our reserves should be. That goes along with the discussion we've been having on the level of reserves that we should have. Because down the road, we're going to have to make a decision on how much of the reserves we use for financing the fire rescue initiative. So I'd like them to start working on that.
I'm a little confused because the sponsor is the vice mayor. So she's working on that exact issue.
Right.
I
So-
know she's waiting for some research. We've only gotten one response for some of those municipalities. But we could, I don't know.
well, I mean, I guess I can give an update on where I am and maybe we can talk the
Great.
next steps because I think it's kind of why I wanted to know what was the addition or subtraction to reserve. So what I had asked, some things that I think are some important next steps. So just to kind of remind everyone, so I shared information on what all some of the other neighboring municipalities, how much they are
Right.
keeping in reserves. You know, shared some information on how the reserves have grown over the years, that it's been over the last 15 years that those reserves have grown. Did an analysis of the insurance coverages that we have and what our deductibles are. And I think and then also shared that information with the financial advisory board.
Oh, you
And
did?
I
Okay.
shared my presentation to the financial advisory board. I'm not sure, I don't remember what meeting it was. But I must say, I kind of sprang it on them. I did not give them any lead time.
I recall that.
I really, at that point in time, and I had also kind of sprung it on you guys, because what I really wanted was some brainstorming ideas on what to look into next. And from what I recall, the financial advisory board, they kind of felt like they needed a little bit more time to process it. So maybe the next meeting is a good time. So in the meantime, I had asked Marshall for input from other towns as to, there were like 3 questions. How did they arrive? What kind of things did they consider in arriving at their levels of reserves? What did they consider? Do they have ways to access funds, like a letter of credit? We had discussed a letter of credit. How viable is that? What are other towns doing? Because the sense that I got, and what I was recommending, what I'm thinking of recommending is about a third of our general fund budget should be towards assigned, and then the remaining would be used for capital expenditures. Some other things that I've heard you guys say are, something I wanted to look into is, okay, let's say the coast was wiped out and those structures were wiped out. What happens to those taxes? That I think there's a concern for if the improvements were wiped out in a hurricane and all we were left with was land, what happens with the revenue? I'm kind of stuck on that question. I don't really know. I guess some thoughts are maybe to go to that, some towns that have experienced that type of situation, what happens to their assessment base if, those improvements are wiped out. So I guess those were the types of things that I was thinking of bringing next. So I'm waiting on information from the other municipalities. I'm trying to figure out how to get what has happened to other towns that maybe had suffered loss to their improvements. Did they
Good.
still collect money from the taxpayers, or what happens? I also met with the building official and with the director of public works to get some input from them as to what they think we should be setting aside for disaster recovery. Because, with their deductibles, our deductibles, if assuming everything gets wiped out, we have a deductible of like 1.3 million. If in what I'm thinking, it leaves us with about 700,000 for debris removal. And the building official suggested that also keep in mind the flood surge, the water surge. So I guess I don't really know if this remaining 700,000, is enough to clear. No one has been able, I don't know that anyone can really answer that for us. So I have a little bit more information that I was thinking of gathering.
Okay.
So I can target the next financial advisory board meeting.
Might be premature. I just want us to start getting closer to the point where we have some feel for what portion of those reserves we're going to lay against the loans. We don't know yet whether we'll do loans or bonds. That's not the issue. But we know we're going to use some of those reserves. Don't know if it's 2 million, 4 million, 6 million, don't know what the number is. But when the time comes, I don't want us to rush to the decision, say, oh my God, we better figure that out tomorrow. And we've got this financial advisory board there. I think their input is necessary to help us make that decision.
Absolutely
And
agree.
and you've been doing a great deal of work on this, which is terrific. But you know, I don't know that we'll be funding it for another year or two, but it's down the road. And we've got to work out a financing program so we can draw down on that financing. You know, the big number, obviously, the gorilla is the building, which is a construction loan or a bond that we'll work off of. But that's gonna hit us sooner rather than later. That's all.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
So I just wanted to get
because
moving.
it takes I think it takes a while for us to get comfortable with, how much we want to draw down on that unassigned reserves. I would be happy with gearing up so that I can present to the next financial advisory board meeting, some additional information.
Okay, if you
I'm-
think, a month and a half is enough time, then let's assign it to them. But I don't want them to sit in the meeting, hear what you have to say, chat about it, and then make a recommendation. I want them to go home. I want them to think about it. I want them to do some more research on their own and then come back with do an analysis. They have capability to do what you're doing plus,
Right,
because then there are 5 or 6 people doing some more work.
right.
If you want, a handful of buildings to be doing we got a bunch of buildings here in town. Let them do some more work.
Yep.
You're not alone. Get a team working on it. Yeah.
Thanks, Mayor. If I could recommend, Panama City Beach Mayor Jeff McMasters was at one of our events. I think Evelyn was. with me
Perfect.
a
They got
year
wiped
ago.
out.
They got wiped out and he was 2 years still waiting for federal aid. And he said those who assisted him were the local communities in the state.
Yeah.
So Jeff McMasters, Panama City
But
Beach.
he
I'm
can
sure-
answer the question that you
Right, he
just
can-
asked.
right,
What
exactly.
happens to your tax base?
Right.
So can I
Basically,
reach
half of
out to
them
him
left.
and
Because
call
he's
him?
elected, yes.
He's
Okay,
an
'cause
elected
there was
official.
So I can
Yeah.
just, it doesn't need to be mayor to
Yeah, yeah.
mayor. It could be,
Oh, yeah.
I
you're
can just
good.
pick
It
up the
doesn't matter.
phone.
Or if
and-
not, if you want me to call,
No,
I'll make
I'm
the call.
happy to do it.
No
It's
problem.
just,
He's got to
I'm-
disclose it afterwards.
I have
so.
his card at home. I can give the number to Marshall.
Yep.
He can give it to you.
Okay. that would be
Another
great.
one would be, because of Sandy, I think it was Sun City in Long Island that was wiped out. Remember half their homes were washed away. And of course you got New Orleans,
Yeah, but here we got a contact.
but you got
We
one
got a
right here.
name.
And
Well,
I was going to say the Panhandle. I wasn't sure if Panama City was the best one because there's
Yeah.
one west of,
Yeah, but he'll know
Panama.
also. He can say, well, now you ought to talk to so-and-so. Networking always works.
And plus it's Florida, so maybe there's
Even
something
better.
more specific to Florida
Yeah.
rules.
Only point is he wasn't the only town that got
Right.
hit there. So he can tell you, oh, you ought to talk to Joe here and Sally there. They also got wiped out.
Okay.
He kind of took the lead on that area, so he
Okay.
spoke to him.
Awesome. I
Great.
will talk to them.
Okay, takes care of that. That's all I had.
back to the language.
Okay,
That was helpful. Thank you.
I like number 3. I got 2 for 3.
I will ask you to think about the only difference is, but not limited to.
Right.
And I really wonder if that conjures up some fear that we can, spend money. I'm not sure. It's a legal way of leaving open the door. I'm just, is it really necessary is my point.
It is, because if we don't put that in and need money to do something that's not specified there, we have a problem.
Well,
Well,
also,
You
wait,
don't
wait,
know what's
wait.
gonna come up.
So in,
it also says, here's some examples of things.
So-
That's all.
so in number 2, what I was going to suggest is instead of saying including, put in such as. Those are examples.
But don't you think it's the same?
When you say, but, not limited to, that's a legal expression that comes off, I think, a bit aggressively versus just saying, hey, all these services and such as blah, blah, blah.
This is a legal document.
But you don't want to have it come smack in their face.
Are you more comfortable with including items like? That's the same thing as such as. I don't care.
What do you think, Mr. Lawyer?
So I gave you three choices. They're all very close. Just the question of the first one says
They all mean
other
the
town
same.
services. The second one is direct, just town services. And the third one, we got a little more legalese and said including but not limited to. I put on my Evelyn hat because that's what the hat we wear. So, you know,
And it's
such
obvious that
as,
you would pick up on it too as a lawyer. And there you do. You have two lawyers who would support that kind of a statement when I don't think.
When you look at something like this, you have to look at, if you were going to attack it, where would you attack it?
Right
from?
there.
right. So three
That's what
is
you
the
do when you do
conservative.
a
This is your,
contract. That's what you do in most of the things that you do in the legal field. You gotta figure what the guy down the road is going to attack you with, and will he be successful? So that's where.
Well, I support the idea of examples, such as these examples. And that takes care of it. And it doesn't limit it to those examples. They are examples. You can have other, that implies other examples. If we needed to add something else to that list.
I don't care. You want to see items such as? That's what you want?
That
Okay
would be
with
my
me.
preference.
I don't care. Do you care? Does it make any difference to
yeah,
you?
the most conservative approach is the including but not limited to. Passing it is important. If you think that impedes the passage, such as is an alternative. It's a good alternative.
What do you people think?
Are you a politician?
Yes, sir.
And I'm expecting this to be the most difficult.
I don't have an issue with not limited to, but I'm on the fence. I could go. I would hope people would realize that, you know.
Do you think there's certain persons out there that would take a look at that and go bananas?
Yeah, but they might also take a look at such as and think you're hiding things.
No, you're defining what such as means versus unlimited. That could be anything.
So could such as.
Is such as versus items like, which is friendlier?
Items like is probably friendlier, I would think, but,
Such as is grammatically correct,
oh, yeah.
but vernacular is like.
Yeah.
So, depends how you want to be correct or not. No, people get confused. They think it's ice or something.
Items like, I propose. Comfortable?
Go with it. Because I would like to, I'd go with that rather than this, but limited,
Okay,
not limited to.
on the
So-
front,
so we're going with
on the
number two.
first line. To recognize the growth of costs and support the delivery. Can we take out the word to?
To recognize growth, of course, and okay, number two.
Got too many twos in here. So it's to recognize the growth of costs and support the delivery of town services, including items like the water treatment plant. Okay, very conversational.
All right, so.
So I have another suggestion. So I thought it was confusing, the increase from the 1991 limit of, I guess I was wondering, be increased from the current limit of 350,000, which was established in 1991, to 5% of the town's total annual budget. I just, the 1991 limit, I don't know that that really makes it clear. I wanted to clarify, the current limit is now 350 and it was established in 1991.
So what you're saying is basically from the 1991 limit established.
So this is hard, from the current limit of 350,000, which was established in 1991, to 5% of the town's total annual budget.
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, she's just rearranging it.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Well, you're putting the word current in also.
Current and established in,
well, do you need the word current or just want to say increase from the from the limit established in 1981 of
Oh.
350.
I don't know.
I'm fine either one. I just don't know whether you want the word current or not. Just trying to come up with an option.
I like current because it emphasizes what it is now, but I'm
Yeah, I would agree.
I like it a lot. I think what you put is perfect. I like current limit, which was established in 1991.
The current limit of 350,000, which was
which was
established.
established in 1991.
So after 350,000, which was established in 1991 to 5%.
Of the total.
I think that's real good.
Yep.
65 words.
We're good.
Very clear.
So you want me to read that?
Okay.
To recognize the growth of costs and support the delivery of town services, including items like the water treatment plant, library, police, and fire rescue, shall the town of Highland Beach amend its charter as section 2.0130 to provide that the funding limits be increased from the current limit of $350,000, which was established in 1981, to 5% of the town's total annual budget.
Like it.
66
winner.
words.
That's a winner.
I like it.
So I guess from the Nelda standpoint, you need a motion to approve that ordinance as amended,
Have a good holiday.
right?
Huh?
It's a motion to. approve-
Motion.
Or, this is 2021-016. As amended.
So moved. Right?
Yes.
Seconded.
Okay. Want to read the names? Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No,
Thank you.
I'm still a
Done.
no. Sorry, I don't think the amount works. Sorry. Wording's good. I hope
You
I'm
mean
wrong.
after all my,
Sorry, I hope I'm wrong this time.
didn't convince you. Okay,
I'm worried about the amount.
you got it right.
I hope I'm wrong.
Some benefit that they are intelligent enough to understand that a 1991 limit just doesn't work in 2021.
No, she's there on that. She just doesn't buy
The number.
5%. She thinks it should be 870.
You know what, Peggy, I will never agree to a set amount. Period. I won't, because then you're.
It's okay.
15 years from now, they're right back in the same position we're in now.
See, I also
Evelyn,
think
it's
if we
done
went with a number like 995 or 990,000, I think it's an insult. I think they think now we're selling them. You know, we're not selling products here. Yeah.
I just have
Okay,
a
but
problem.
I know
I hope
you.
I'm
You'll-
wrong.
You'll do everything you can to.
I will
communicate it.
absolutely.
And Mary, I think you make a really good point. My inflation arguments about pegging it to the budget, but the other reason for pegging it to the budget is it is consistent with the level of services that we provide.
Yes, it is.
And so it's an additional benefit above and beyond inflation it is reflective of the services that are provided by the town. And I think that is important,
Yeah, if I can't think of an item, but if we took on another whole
Right,
responsibility for
Right.
something,
right,
whatever that cost is,
right,
this moves along with that.
right.
So it's definitely the right way to go.
Absolutely.
No question about it. Yeah.
I am going to take it upon myself to ask some of the people I know who've lived here longer than me, which is 30 years, 31 coming up, and ask them what happened back then, because something happened back then that they reduced terms, they put this, I'm going to just try to find out, because I'm curious. I don't think our residents are illiterate, stupid, can't understand it. I just think there's something that has gone on in the past that just holds people back. I don't know what it is.
Oh, there
It's
definitely
just
was
my
some
personal
reason that
opinion.
they
I'm for the
did what they
language.
did.
Recognize that how many years ago that was.
I
You may
know.
not get people remembering
Oh, I will. I do. No, I have them. I can talk to them. I will. I'm just saying I'm going to try.
Well, that's a good point. Okay, does anybody have anything else before we sign off? Okay, at 4:49, we will adjourn. Thank you all.
Thank you.
So